All right, guys, hold on. I'm going to do some stuff with the StreamYard so you can check Mike's audio level coming from the board, okay?
Okay.
Check 1, 2. Check 1. We're live.
So you need to turn down Mike's local on the channel going into his laptop.
Okay. Turn the local down. How about now?
Mike, go ahead.
Check 1. Check 2.
That is so much better.
Okay.
I hear echo. I mean, I don't know how.
Don't worry about that.
Easy for you to say.
All right.
I don't know how this happened.
Go ahead, Nick.
Test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, I need to pop the station back in your ear for a minute.
Okay.
I will.
Wasn't as hard as she thought. She went to AutoZone, where a friendly AutoZoner helped her find the right oil and save on an oil filter.
Home of the Philadelphia Eagles.
They got him again!
Sixers.
Bang! It's good! Ball game!
And Flyers.
Tipped in front of the net!
97.3 ESPN. WENJ. WENJ HD. Millville, Atlantic City. A Town Square media station serving all of South Jersey. Live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
We are live on a happy hour Friday. We are on location yet again yesterday at Ocean Casino, packed house at the Gallery Bar, booking games today. We are out and about at Boardwalk Honda right here on Tilton Road in Egg Harbor Township. Stop out and see my good friend, Mr. Lombardi. The Eagles Super Bowl trophy is in attendance. We've already had people stop out and get their picture taken, and you can do that as well as the Sports Bash is live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Be a part of the show. My on-site producer, Nick Earnshaw. Josh Henning is back in the Ocean Casino Resort Studios. We got the Nuggets live on site today. We've got the Phillies live in just a couple of minutes. The Phils lineup is out. It's a pretty standard lineup for today with Stott back in the leadoff spot. You got Spot, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Castellanos. Is it Kepler in the six hole today?
Yep, Kepler's in the 6 hole.
Kepler, Real Muto, 7, Bohm, 8. And then you've got Johan Rojas in the 9 hole, and that will be with Taijuan Walker getting the start against the Chicago Cubs. We'll keep you up to date on that. But the big move last night was right around 11:27 as the draft was winding down. one pick left to go, and Howie Roseman just could not contain himself. He had to make a move, and Roseman trades up one spot last night from 32 to 31. He gives up one of his 4 fifth-round picks to get up one spot, and he takes former Timber Creek linebacker. He ended up finishing his career at IMG Academy, but played for 3 seasons up there in Washington Township at Timber Creek, Jihaad Campbell. And, man, I'll tell you what, in all of the draft process that we went through, in all of the conversations that we had, I don't know that anybody brought Campbell up. I don't know, bad job by me not asking about him. But never in your wildest dreams did you think the Eagles would take an off-ball linebacker, edge rusher. Now, this is the interesting part about it, and this is where the conversation starts. What is Campbell? What do they intend to do with him? And Howie Roseman addressed that last night when he was asked multiple times that people kept trying to get him to kind of give you some insight on what Campbell is. Is he a off-ball linebacker in the mold of a Nakobe Dean? Or is he more of an edge rusher, somebody like a Nolan Smith who would play on the end? Or is he a little bit of both? Well, last night you got a chance to kind of get that from Howie Roseman as he explained about how he sees Campbell in a Vic Fangio system. He says this is the type of player that Vic Fangio will like to utilize.
Vic does a tremendous job with getting guys who have pass rush ability to be versatile players like that. And I think what's really fun is that those guys who have that versatility, who can go out on the edge and get pressure as a rusher, and he's got speed, he's got power as an edge rusher, he was trained as an edge rusher, and then he's got the versatility to play off the ball and blitz from depth and play in space, in pass coverage as an off-ball linebacker.
So you heard Roseman kind of say he's been trained as this, he could do this. Kind of seems a lot like what happened with Micah Parsons and what the Dallas Cowboys ended up doing with Micah Parsons was he's a middle linebacker. He's a linebacker at Penn State, but because of all the injuries that happened in Dallas when he was a rookie, they ended up using him as a defensive end at times. They ended up using him as a pass rusher. He's been all over the place there. And you do that and combine with what Vic Fangio does and knowing what he's up against in this very interesting NFC, Howie Roseman explained that about, hey, here's what Vic Fangio does and knows what their competition in the NFC is.
Vic, with the success that he's had, understanding that he's got a vision for the player, but we've seen what he can do with guys with this kind of skill set. And you just look around the league, the teams that we have to get through to get where we want to go, they have fast, explosive quarterbacks, players in their backfield that we got to bring down at all levels of our defense. And we need a tremendous amount of front seven players to contain those guys.
So there's Howie Roseman talking about you have a tremendous amount of front seven players. Somebody's got to contain them. You saw what Dallas did last night. They drafted an offensive lineman. They went with a guard, and you're thinking, man, they took a guard at pick number 12, which, by the way, was much maligned last night. Not the player, but so much that, hey, you have the 12th pick of the draft. You kind of need an impactful player, and you went and took a guard. But was it a smart pick by Dallas to take a guard? Why? The Eagles' pass rush comes from the interior, Jalen Carter, and then that opens things up for so many of the outside guys. And that's where I find this Campbell pick to be really interesting. And Campbell last night, he is a former, I don't want to say former, he's an Eagles fan, right?
Yeah, I mean, he went to Timber Creek, Mike Gill. I mean, this is a local guy, played 3 years at Timber Creek. I know Josh wrote a great article about him. And listen, he went to IMG Academy. He's a local kid. He's from the area. He's 10 minutes from me, where I live. So, I mean, he's very local, from the area. I mean, and you could see the excitement when he came out to grab his hat and meet Roger Goodell last night, Mike Gill.
He was jumping up and down and ready to go, but this is a player you're thinking, okay, the Eagles take him at number 31. They trade up one spot. Why? Well, I think Howie Roseman explained it by saying we moved up because they didn't want anybody else to move up because they thought that this player was at a spot in the draft that he really shouldn't have been. This is where the Eagles had him on their draft board.
This was a top 10 player on our board. We do not have any long-term concerns with his health. You know, we look at the draft as a long-term opportunity for our team. We have a lot of confidence this guy's going to be here and play at a really high level for a long time. And so when you're in a draft and you're picking at the end of the first round, you have an opportunity to get a top 10 player at your board, on your board, a guy who can affect the quarterback, a guy who can affect the passing game. You know, for us, it was a no-brainer. Local kid, great character.
So absolutely cool to hear with the fact that they had a player that they had in the top 10. This was a top 10 player on their board, right? They felt that this was a top 10 player in this draft. In other words, if we had a top 10 pick, we're taking this guy. He's there at 31. We can't wait and see if somebody jumps over top of us and trades with Kansas City and takes a top 10 player. No. I have 4 fifth-round picks. Well, this is when I'm going to make my move. So do you guys give me your thoughts? 609-403-0973. By the way, the Phillies game is starting in a rain delay, so they are not getting on first pitch here at 2 o'clock as scheduled. So when that happens, and we'll keep you up to date as the Phillies go live, they are in a rain delay to start it. But the Eagles trade up with the Chiefs to select Alabama linebacker Jihaad Campbell with the 31st overall pick. Are you guys – I want to hear your reaction to the pick, the fit, and expectations here. And we'll go through the draft. We'll go through the NFC East. Busy show today, 609-403-0973. So we're live at Boardwalk Honda. Just saw a whole barrage of Eagles fans. Saw Saquon Barkley jersey.
Kelly Green, Mike
right?
Gill.
Got the Kelly Green Barkley jersey. People are coming out already, getting their picture taken with the Super Bowl trophy that is the Philadelphia Eagles' second Super Bowl trophy, and you can come on out. It's displayed right here in front of us here. You check that out. You get your picture taken. No obligation. Just come out, say hello, get your picture taken, and you can do what you want. There was a gentleman here that happened to be buying a car. I think he bought a car.
Well, he did buy a car.
Right, he was there before we got here. Happened to be buying a car. Was like, and the Super Bowl trophy's here? This is unbelievable. That then sparked 2 other people to show up, and they all have Eagles jerseys on. So if you're just driving down Chilton Road in Egg Harbor Township, Northfield, you're in the Atlantic County area, you're within the sound of our voice right now, the trophy's here till 6 o'clock. You are more than welcome to just turn in. If you're heading south towards Margate, you can make a quick stop, pick, and keep on going. If you're headed north out towards Egg Harbor Township or Mays Landing or Philadelphia, you can make a quick stop, take a quick pick, get back in your car, and keep on going. Just come by, say hello. We'll be here till 6 o'clock tonight.
And if you drive by, just bust a Yui somewhere. Just bust a Yui somewhere and come back and get your picture with the Lombardi. By the way, I did my best PG impression today, Mike Gill. I took a selfie with the Lombardi today. I did my best PG. I let him know on Instagram.
Why'd you take a selfie? You have capable picture
Well,
takers.
I did both, but I had to honor PG yesterday because PG posted the selfie. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do my best PG. He did it yesterday. I'm following suit today as we're on another remote here at Boardwalk Honda.
Well, it's a great spot. We're actually outside today, too, so
Yeah.
you don't even have to go in the showroom to say hello to us. We're sitting right out front of the showroom on Tilton Road in Northfield here. You guys know where Boardwalk Honda is. We're right here on Tilton Road in Egg Harbor Township. So I want to read some text messages off 609-403-0973. A lot of people texting in about the draft party yesterday. Mike, thanks for the draft party yesterday. You're welcome. Thanks for stopping out if you came to the draft. But we were packed yesterday, man. The place was absolutely mobbed, where it was every single seat at the bar. And that's a big bar.
Gigantic in there.
Every seat was taken.
And
every seat was filled in that place yesterday.
you guys had the show right up on the TV screens. It was great. It was a fun time.
Goody from Galloway checks in, says, I think Jihaad Campbell is a direct reflection of containing Jaden Daniels. I love the pick. Round 2 should be interesting. Can we be lucky enough to see Kevin Winston fall and shore up our safety position? Go Birds! All right, I want to react to a lot of that, Goody. Goody, you've been hitting us with some good texts in the last couple days here. Appreciate you, buddy. That's a great point on Campbell. I thought the same thing. Is now you got a guy who's – and last night Roseman was asked about what this means for Nakobe Dean. In other words, was this a replacement for Nakobe Dean because you don't think that he is going to be healthy? And I thought his answer to that was kind of interesting. So Roseman gets asked about Dean. The question was, does Nakobe Dean's injury timeline affect his projection at whatever position, meaning Campbell's projection? And Roseman says, no, we have a lot of confidence in Nakobe Dean, and this has nothing to do with Nakobe. It had to do with the fact that we have a top 10 player on our board who we love, and we love the versatility. Okay, so that's the interesting part there. He says, for us, that was it. So if you have Nakobe Dean on the field and Zach Bond, the two guys who were your linebackers, he's essentially saying, this guy can play with both of those guys. So that's where, to me, this raises the eyebrows to what Goody and Galloway's question was. If you have a guy where you have to spy maybe.
Right.
Now you have a guy who can rush the passer or play in the spy role. I see a lot of people, one of the questions that was asked, it was an interesting moment last night. It was asked to Nick Sirianni about a player comp. Here was that exchange between Sirianni and then Roseman, who was trying to kind of save his coach from having to give a player comp. This was last night.
Player comps come up in those meetings. What player comps came up with Campbell?
Yeah, again, but,
They're trying to get you.
Yeah.
They're trying to get you.
Go ahead, why don't you want to take it?
Well, no. Because it's funny because we were watching on the NFL Network, and the first few guys are Hall of Famer comps, and so it's we're looking at that, we're going, whoa, those are big shoes to fill. So I think for us, those are conversations we have with our staff, and that puts coach in a bad spot. So I'm stepping in front.
Yeah, I don't want Sirianni to have to give a player comp because that'll put him in a bad spot. But some of the player comps that have kind of come across, one of them was Zach Bond.
Yeah.
An athletic, remember, Bond came here. He was an edge rusher, essentially, kind of a stand-up linebacker that came from the outside, and they made him a off-ball linebacker who can also rush the passer. But that's where one of the comps was with Campbell was a guy who's really athletic who can – and one of the things I like about Campbell, he can tackle. He doesn't generally miss tackles. His missed tackle percentage is 5%, 5.9, I think it is. He wraps and tackles and is nasty and is fast and is athletic. Again, I am pretty shocked that the Eagles went in this direction. I got to be honest. I never really saw this coming, but I do think that point by the text message, which is, hey, you have a guy like Jaden Daniels. Does this pick reflect that style of quarterback now? You have somebody – now you have Bond and you have Campbell, and they're interchangeable type of players. So I thought that's a good one. He also said round 2 should be interesting. Right now at 97.3 ESPN.com, there's a mock draft up at ESPN.com for round number 2. What position do you think they have the Eagles going? You're going round 2, pick 64. What are you targeting
I
right
think they
now?
could go corner because we didn't really see a corner run last night towards the end of the first round. I think they could probably go in that direction, stay defense. We heard a lot of talk about maybe they could take a corner. I know Adoree Jackson they did sign, but they want to go younger, right? They took Cooper DeJean. They took Quinyon Mitchell last year. You lose Darius Slay. That's an option too. But I want to go back a little bit, Mike. With Campbell, do we remember how they tried utilizing Hassan Reddick a couple of years ago to try and towards the end of the season and try and take him and put him into coverage as well as use him in the edge? I think they might use him in that type of way, but he'll be more successful at it, in my estimation.
Well, listen, Reddick was a great player, but I'm glad you brought him up because you remember when he got drafted out of Temple, he was a middle linebacker.
Yeah.
He was a middle linebacker, Hassan Reddick, and when he got into the league, he was a little bit of a bust. Because in Arizona, they didn't know what to do with him. They were playing at linebacker, and he just wasn't ready, wasn't good enough as a middle linebacker at the pro level. Well, at the last year in Arizona, they finally moved him to an edge rush type of situation, and he has a good year in Arizona. And then he leaves and goes to Carolina, and he has a big year in Carolina. And then Philadelphia signs him, and he has an unbelievable season in Philadelphia. So Reddick is a great name to bring up because the question that I would have is, do the Eagles view him as a style of player that Hassan Reddick, they thought Arizona, when they drafted him, a guy who could play middle linebacker, off-ball linebacker, but also be a guy who rushes the passer. This guy's way more athletic, though, than Hassan Reddick. By the way, didn't Hassan Reddick, he went to Camden High, right?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, and he went to Temple. I mean, he was from here too. So you're bringing all these local guys in. I love it, and they trade up one pick to get him. And I'm sure a lot of other teams were trying to get in on that Kansas City pick. And Howard Roseman said, with those fifth rounders, you could take anyone you want.
So Goody and Galloway says, can we be lucky enough to see Kevin Winston follow us? Well, I'll tell you this: Winston, a safety. If he's on the board at 64, I would think he's in play. My question is, Imawari, who did not get drafted last night, many people have him as the top safety on the board.
It's a possibility.
You saw Malachi Starks go at 26 to Baltimore. The South Carolina safety, Imawari, would the Eagles trade up to try to get him? That is something. I left last night. Now, they have 3 fifth-round picks. I left last night thinking there's a couple players that now, I mean, Tyler Warren, he fell. The Colts have to be doing, have to be ecstatic with the fact that Tyler Warren, he wasn't even the first tight end drafted last night. The Eagles, by the way, at pick 64 is a tight end now in play because of what happened last night. Think about that. 609-403-0973. Jeff in Ocean City says, awesome event yesterday at Ocean. Love the pick by Howie. Congratulations. By the way, Jeff in Ocean City was kind enough to drop me off a nice treat.
How about that?
Yeah, it was probably the best gift. I don't want to say that because I have other people drop off a similar type of gift, but his was pretty darn good.
Jeff's the man. I love Jeff. He was texting me yesterday. He's DMing me. He's like, hey, where you at? I'm like, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow with the Super Bowl trophy. He got a great picture with the Super Bowl trophy. Shout out to Jeff in Ocean City.
Tim in Summers Point says, Mike, once again, Howie let the draft play to him and played it expertly. That was a master class of seeing what the rest of the league is going to give you and making an informed decision based off the evidence. Absolute master class, says Tim in Summers Point. Tim, yeah, I mean, he just patiently sat there. His guy that he had top 10 on the board, he was a top 10 player on his board. He waited and waited and waited and waited. Now, some people would say, why did you move up? Why I give up the 5th-round pick? His point was, I didn't want someone else to trade over top of us to take him at that spot, because once you get that deep in the draft, if we had him 10 on our board, or in the top 10 on our board, somebody else had to have said, hey, this guy's a top 10 player in the draft, and we might want to know. Because he said you started to see some teams later on in the 20s start to trade back into the first round. The Giants did it. They took the quarterback. That was a big story last night.
Yeah, and I wonder, we talked about what phone number did Howie Roseman use yesterday. I wonder if it was the 215, the 856. Who knows? Did he use a burner? By the way, I don't remember the last time, Mike, a Super Bowl matchup traded with each other in the first round. I wonder if that's ever happened before. That's something I was thinking about. Like, did that ever happen before?
You need a Jason Stark of football.
Ooh,
who's the Jason
I might have
Stark
to do a
of
deep dive tonight or something during the show for Nuggets.
Who's the Jason Stark of football that comes up with those random, weird, Jason Stark always does his weird baseball things that happen. Who's the guy who does that for football? Carter hanging in middle says, Mike, that pick at 31 was Howie being Howie. Him and Zach going to be trouble with Carter. Oh, with Carter hogging the middle, not Carter hanging in middle. That was
hogging
the end of the
the
text
middle.
message there.
Hogging up, clogging up the middle. All right, Carter's in the middle. We know Carter's in the middle.
Yeah, Carter in the middle. Yeah, I mean, you got Zach Bond and now an athlete like this playing the linebacker spot on the field. Just more speed and athleticism on the field that you have to deal with. Look, I'm not going to sit here and say I saw this coming. No way in heck did I see the Eagles landing a player like this at 31. You just never anticipated that he would, number one, be there. As Brian Baldinger points out, Brian Baldinger said this on one of his Baldy breakdowns. He believed that This is the best player at his position in the draft.
The best linebacker in this draft is Jihaad Campbell. It's not even close. He's going to find the ball carrier, no matter where he lines up. Okay? Like, he's got an elite skill set. Game-changing plays. We saw Zach Bond do that a bunch last year. This is what good inside linebackers do. They trust their speed, which is plenty. 4.52 at 243 pounds.
Big guy. The 243 at the end that he brings up there. He's a big guy. He's not an undersized, he's not an undersized player. Oh man, he's only 220, trying to play a lot. No, this guy's 240. You're looking back at back in the day, not quite Jeremiah Trotter, but more in the Jeremiah Trotter size range. Back when he played, Jeremiah Trotter was like in the 255, 260 range. This guy, a little bit bigger than your normal guys like Kobe. He's a smaller linebacker. Jacoby's in the 220 range, 225. So we got so much more. The Eagles draft night one in the books. Your reaction, your text messages, they keep coming in. 609-403-0973. I don't like this text because, guys, the dude right next to me won the box seats.
Wow.
I know I had the wrong chair at the bar. Thanks for the end. It was a great time. Thank you for coming. Number one, I want to thank everybody who came out because I know it's tough in the middle of a work day to come out and hang for the whole show, but I got to be honest. It was packed yesterday. It was packed, and it was packed early. Sometimes, I get there after work. By 3 o'clock, the people from Ocean were like, this place is packed. And I said, I can't believe. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out. And people hung out the whole day, and it was fun. People came up and said hello. Met a couple young guys, older people, middle. I mean, it was from all over the place. Such a cool time yesterday. Great spot. And we're going to continue to try to find some great venues to do more giveaways throughout the rest of the year.
Yeah, it looked like a great event. It was packed, Mike Gill. And guess what? I'm sure people set that in their calendar to set that up. That's why they were there early. They're like, we're taking a day off from work.
Well, I'll tell you what. Lou in Brigantine won the tickets, but we had winners all throughout the day. We're going to keep giving away stuff, and we got some more stuff planned for you. But today, you can come out to Boardwalk Honda right here in Egg Harbor Township. Come out and have your picture taken with the championship trophy. It is right here. Spring into savings throughout the month of April at Boardwalk Honda. Their massive selection means you'll find the perfect Honda for your lifestyle. No waiting, no delays. Now is the time to lock in these spring savings events, and we happen to have the Eagles championship trophy right here on location. Stop out and see us here. We're here till 6. When we come back, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City and PressOfAC.com joins us to discuss the Giants' move last night. Did they finally land their quarterback? Their coach made an announcement last night that we'll discuss next.
This is the home of the Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles.
Eagles fans, savor it and rejoice.
97.3 ESPN, South Jersey's Eagles.
All right, live out here at Boardwalk Honda, Tilton Road in Egg Harbor Township, and stop out, say hello, take a picture with the Eagles Super Bowl championship trophy. You can do whatever you feel with it, man. Get a big old post. Now, if you get that picture, you get it, a portrait of yourself, put it up over like your fireplace.
Yeah.
Is that what you're doing with yours?
Probably not. I'll put the selfie up over the fireplace. I'll put PG's right next to it, too.
It's amazing the smile it puts on your face when you see it. There's people, like, I'm not really an Eagles fan, but it's pretty cool to see this thing. Like,
yeah.
it just kind of glistens.
I mean, I took a selfie with it, a normal picture. I pose. You can do all different types of poses with it.
Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. We'll get into a whole bunch of stuff, including the draft last night. Are his Giants any closer to winning a Super Bowl trophy? They have some, but it's been a little while, and they've been pretty downright rotten. Last night, they were one of the big stories, Mike, of the draft. They started off by adding a defensive edge, a defensive end and edge rusher in Abdul Carter. I think a lot of people really thought that was a great starting point for them, but then they really made news by trading back into the first round, not for Shedeur Sanders, for Jackson Dart. So, what do we think of the NFC East? Let's start at the bottom with the Giants last night.
Well, I thought the Giants, made two good moves last night. Obviously, Carter was one of two players in this draft that were pretty much everybody said were almost sure things. So you come away with that. And then they trade back in, make what I thought was a reasonable trade to get back into the first round and take Jackson Dart. Now, here's what I take from the draft last night. And I have no idea if Jackson Dart is going to be any good or not. Neither does anybody else. But at least the Giants looked like they knew what they were doing. They looked organized. They executed the draft. The trade seemed reasonable. Past drafts, whether it was taking Daniel Jones 5 or 6 or taking this guy or taking that guy, even taking Saquon Barkley number 2, it seemed like after every draft of the past couple of years, the Giants were kind of being criticized by everybody. I take some solace as a Giants fan that they actually executed a good draft last night. Now, what does that mean? Are the players any good? None of us have any idea, but at least I think you come out of the draft saying they looked like a team that knew what they were doing.
Yeah, that's fair to say. Now, personally for you, and they take Dart, was that the guy that you would have said, hey, that's who I would have targeted there? Many people said, how did they not take Sanders? So the Giants set themselves up for the conversation of, that one will always be discussed and looked at, even though it's not at number 1 or number 2. Like a lot of times when you pass on one for another, this one's a little deeper in the draft, but you get two guys on the board. You choose one over the other. What'd you think about their choice, you personally?
Yeah, eventually you have to make a choice, right? And I remember Jackson Dart when he was quarterbacking back at USC 2 to 3 years ago. It seems like all these guys have been at 3 or 4 schools, right? I take some solace out of the fact that, Shedeur Sanders was not taken by anybody, that after the Giants, passed on him at 3, Pittsburgh didn't jump on him. The Saints didn't jump on him. Teams with other quarterbacks needs did not jump on him. So that made me feel better about the Giants passing on Sanders. And the fact that they took Dart over Sanders, well, that's a choice. I guess we've got to trust, Brian Dable and Joe Shane. They made the choice. They saw all the workouts. They've got all the numbers, films, video in front of them. They made the decision. And the thing that bothered me about Sanders is a lot of people said, well, he's not a great athlete and he doesn't have a great arm. Well, if he's not a great athlete, he doesn't have a great arm, like, why do I want him quarterbacking my team? So is Jackson Dart the answer? No, but it is a reasonable answer and a reasonable plan going forward.
All right, Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. At number 12 in the NFC East, you got Dallas. They take Booker. Now, if we're all NFC East observers here, they go with an offensive guard. Sometimes a boring pick, but was it actually a smart decision by the Cowboys, who have been criticized a lot this offseason?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Everybody tells you don't take guards in the first round. So, I mean, what do I know? But they say guards is not a premium position. You're not supposed to take guards or running backs or, in the first round. You're supposed to take edge rushers, left tackles, and quarterbacks and wide receivers in the first round. So the Cowboys taking a guard right there. who knows what they're doing? But, is this one guy going to come in and really change the face of the Dallas Cowboys, regardless of how good he is? No. So I think right now, the Cowboys are pretty much, status quo as to what they were last year, and a bit of a mystery with a new coach and Dak's coming off an injury. I mean, I don't know what to expect out of the Dallas Cowboys this season.
Yeah, it's interesting because they do go offensive line. A lot of teams always say, why not do what the Eagles do? Take linemen. Well, they took a lineman, and so did Washington. Washington last year gets their quarterback. They make it to the NFC Championship game. Mike, did you like the decision by Washington? Instead of trying to cut corners, they said, we'll be boring, and we'll go with an offensive tackle. And they go and get that tackle because, look, their line was a big problem last year.
Yeah, I love that pick. When you've got Jaden Daniels back there, you've got to protect him, give him time to throw, and they're pretty well set at the skill positions, right? They have good running backs, good wide receivers, made a move in the offseason for a wide receiver, so they were set. And when you have Jaden Daniels, you've got to protect him, and you've got to invest in the offensive line in front of him that will make Daniels even more effective. So, yeah, their pick going the offensive line there, especially offensive tackle, understandable, and I think a big boost for the Commanders.
Okay, so inside the NFC East, you saw the Giants maybe finally make two savvy moves. Dallas, kind of boring pick with an offensive guard. They know they have Jalen Carter to deal with. Washington, they take a tackle because they know what they have to deal with the pass rush that Philadelphia likes to put together. And then the Eagles just say, we'll just add more pass rush. How surprised were you when they took a linebacker in the first round?
Well, they haven't taken a linebacker in forever, right? So I think you're surprised from that standpoint. But what you're kind of seeing there is, I think, a change in philosophy a little bit, and a change in philosophy with Vic Fangio as the defensive coordinator and how he favors or thinks about the linebacker position. And this guy, I would assume, is not just going to be an inside linebacker. I think he's going to be an edge guy too. And Mike, you can never have too many guys on the edge that can rush the passer. I mean, that's the secret to success in the NFL. If you can get to the quarterback without blitzing, with just the four guys up front, you have a huge advantage over over other teams. That's what the Eagles did this past season. So why not? And they lost some guys off that line that can rush the quarterback this season in free agency. So why not replace that guy with a rookie with a lot of ability that, according to Howie Roseman, was in their top 10 on the board. I don't know how true that is or how true it's not, but obviously they add a good player at a spot that was a strength last year. They lose some guys and they try to rebuild that strength through the draft. So I think an overall good selection for the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right, that's the draft talk last night. And of course, round 2 and 3 tonight. You can listen on 97.3 ESPN. The Eagles pick 64th in the second round. So they got a ways to go tonight as well. Mike, the Phillies had the day off yesterday, and they kind of needed it. But rain delay right now, they might need that too. When you're watching this team, Jim Salisbury yesterday, we played the audio of him saying 64 and 63 over their last 127 games. Are we watching an average baseball team? Does that record stand out and say, you know what? This team used to be really good, but right now they're an average baseball team. Fair or unfair?
Yeah, fair, completely fair. And I heard the same thing that you heard that Jim said. I was on the elliptical at the local gym up here listening to the podcast that Jim does with Todd Zalicki and Ruben Amaro, the Phillies show. And he said that. And you know what else he said that kind of almost caused me to stop on the elliptical mid whatever, is that over the same stretch, the Mets are 31 games over 500. So the Mets are 31 games over 500 since that London series, and the Phillies are 1 game over 500 since the London series. I don't know what went on in London, but maybe we should go investigate or something like that. But I think it's definitely a fair question. I mean, the Phillies have basically been a 500 team for 127 games. And Mike, I'm not going to panic right now, Mike, at 13-12. I know a lot of Phillies fans are hitting that panic button. I don't think it's fair to hit that panic button right now at 13-12. But get back to me 2 weeks from today and let's see what the record is. And then 40 games in, 45 games in, if it continues like this, then it might be time to press the big red panic button on the side of the desk.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, that number. And by the way, I was in London, and I can tell you, I was at that game. Taijuan Walker started. The Mets came back. They won in kind of like a come-from-behind fashion. And ever since then, one game over 500. Things have not felt right for the Phillies, and the Mets have kind of turned their season around at that point, and it has carried over here. And by the way, Mike, you can speak to this. They're doing this, and Soto hasn't really given them much yet.
No, he has not, produced, the home runs, the doubles that we thought we were going to see. Although I was up at Citi Field and watching the games over the past couple of days, he has hit the ball hard. He just missed a 3-run home run against Nola, hit the ball hard at Bryson Stott in that 7th inning. The thing about Soto, though, Mike, is even watching him a little bit on a daily basis now, even though he's not producing, the stats, his at-bats are just tremendous. I mean, he gives you 4 quality at-bats. You do not get him out on a first pitch, or he does not make life easy for the pitcher. He makes the pitcher work. So even though he's not getting the hits or doubles or home runs that the Mets would expect him to have as the season progresses, his at-bats on a daily basis are just tremendous. He really takes a toll on opposing pitching staffs.
Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. So it's the Phillies and the Cubs. By the way, Taijuan Walker today. You're going to see Suarez make the rehab start this weekend. We'll see what ends up happening with Christopher Sanchez. That will be the story for next week. Brandon Marsh started his rehab assignment yesterday. Mike, when he comes back, do you anticipate that Marsh goes right back in, or is this going to be a story sometime late next week when you and I are having a conversation on what happens with Brandon Marsh?
Well, first of all, it'll be interesting to see how many at-bats they give him on this minor league rehabilitation assignment, because I think they're going to use this rehab assignment as a chance for him to go down to AAA and get some at-bats and try to get him straightened out a little bit. Kind of getting him the benefit of some minor league at-bats without any pressure on him, without the stigma of having to send him down. So in that way, this injury, this little knee injury or hamstring injury, whatever it is, might be a blessing in disguise. I think when he comes back, they're going to put him back in there and see what he can do. And then give him 2 to 3 weeks, and then they might have to make a decision on what they're going to do with Brandon Marsh and Rojas and Kepler and the bullpen. That's why I said check back with me in 15 to 20 days, and we'll see what's going on, because I do know this. I don't see Dave Dombrowski sort of sitting still and watching this season kind of circle down the drain if the Phillies continue to play like they played the last 2 weeks. I don't think the Phillies are going to take this sort of sitting down.
All right, Mike, busy weekend. Mike and I will be on the call tonight for Ocean City and Cherokee. You can watch that game on our website, 973ESPN.com. We'll also be on the call for Mainland and Bishop Eustis tomorrow. It's the Coaches versus Cancer Classic, 17 games over 4 days, all at one spot. It got started yesterday, Mike, and I know action's happening right now, but a lot of great games still to go if people want to go check out the baseball.
Yeah, if you want to see the best in high school baseball in South Jersey, the Jerome Avenue Field in Margate is the place to play. Like you said, 4:30 today, you've got Let It Be Holy Spirit, followed by Ocean City Cherokee, and then a big day of baseball tomorrow. Hopefully the weather holds off for those guys. And caps off with the great St. Augustine Gloucester Catholic matchup at 7 o'clock Saturday night. Gloucester Catholic, I think the number one team in the state. St. Augustine, the defending state non-public A champion. So if you want to see good baseball, entertaining baseball, Jerome Avenue and Margate is the place to be. And it's obviously for a great cause. They raise money for scholarships for kids and also for the American Cancer Society. It's an emotional event. They have cancer survivors and people whose cancer has impacted their families, throwing out the first pitch before every game. It really is one of the great events of the high school sports season and worthy of everybody sort of getting over there to Jerome Avenue and Margate to support it, tonight, tomorrow, and Sunday.
By the way, the player of the game after every game gets an autographed Mike Trout baseball After every single game, they award that to a player of the game. So that's pretty cool as well. Check that out. Mike and I will be on the call tonight at 7 o'clock for Ocean City and Cherokee. You can watch that on our website, 973ESPN.com, through the Game Changer app. And, of course, we'll be on tomorrow as well. So you can hear Mike and I call a couple of the games. And I'll see you over there in a couple hours, Mike.
All right. I'll be there, Mike. See you there.
All right. Check that out. 973ESPN.com for that the Coaches versus Cancer Classic. This is the 13th year of the event, so they've been doing this for a while. It's all for a great cause. It just keeps getting bigger. They added a whole day this year. Now it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that St. Augustine Gloucester Catholic game, which is generally like the highlight of the weekend. It's usually on Sunday at 2 o'clock. It's kind of like the main event. Well, because Mainland didn't have lights where they used to play, now that game is going to a 7 o'clock under the lights game. So it will allow more people to even get there and check that out. That is all happening. We are live at Boardwalk Honda. Now, a lot of people have already stopped by, said hello, got their picture taken, just had a guy stop in, pop in, take the picture, and pop on out. But it's a keepsake, man. You get a chance, you're driving down the road, you get your picture taken, you'll never forget the moment.
Never.
Now, you got the Super Bowl trophy hanging up, do something with nice. But don't forget, it's one day only. We're here till 6 o'clock tonight. All right, when we come back, Phil's still in a rain delay?
Phils are still in a rain delay. As of right now, still in the delay.
Bob Wankel next hour. Bob and I, our Friday baseball chats, will break down a lot of different things. And some thoughts on the draft. A couple players to keep an eye on tonight in round 2 and in round 3. We got all that coming up for you live from Boardwalk Honda, Chilton Road and EHC. That's where we are today. I just saw they got this, what's that, a passport over there. They only have 500 of them in the country. 500 of them were made, and one of them is right here. Tilton Road, Egg Harbor Township, or BoardwalkHonda.com before the savings are gone.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. You're listening to The Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
All right, final segment of the first hour of the show. We're live at Boardwalk Honda. And by the way, the trophy's here. You can get your picture taken. No problem with that. Also, I forgot to tell you earlier, if you want to enter to win tickets to see Post Malone and Jelly Roll. Now, Nick Earnshaw asked me if I wanted to go see Posty or Jelly, and I said no on either effect. Not because I don't like the artist. I just don't have any interest in going to that particular show. That's just me. But I know Jelly Roll, very, 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 very popular, and Post Malone, very, 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 very popular.
Posty was in my top 5 most listened to artists last year there, Mike Gill. Come on, we got to get you out
Which
there.
is why I'm excited to say I have a pair of tickets. If you want to go see the show, it's Saturday, May 24th, Citizens Bank Park, Post Malone with Jelly Roll. Citizens Bank Park. Pair of tickets, stop out and drop your name in the box. Enter to win.
Home of the Sports Bash with Mike Gill, 97.3 ESPN.
Sounds great, guys.
WENJ, WENJ HD, Millville, Atlantic City. This is the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Now live from inside the Ocean Casino Resort Studio, here's Mike Gill.
Hour 2, we're live at Boardwalk Honda right here on Tilton Road, EHC. Very centrally located for everybody. We're kind of in the heart of Atlantic County. So if you want to come out and get your picture taken with the Eagles Championship Trophy, you can stop by, say hello. We've got tickets to see Jelly Roll and Post Malone. Now, who's the star there?
Oh, Post Malone's the star. This is the headliner for sure.
You think?
Jelly Roll's a little bit below. Posty's huge.
I saw Jelly Roll with Pat McAfee.
Yeah.
No, Post Malone's not going with Pat McAfee.
Posty's been in commercials before. Shane Gillis, he's been in tons of them.
I think I've seen Jelly Roll in commercials.
I would say Posty's been around for a while. He was in the rap scene. Now he's transitioning the country. That's what Posty's
I know who both of them are. Just
Posty's
saying.
the draw.
Right.
Posty's the draw.
You know who's the draw right now? Bob Wankel's with us here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. You are a man of the pop culture world. Is Post Malone bigger than Jelly Roll or vice versa?
I celebrate the entire Post Malone catalog, Mike. I mean, come on.
So you're saying that Post Malone's the bigger artist?
I think that he is the bigger artist, yes. Jelly Roll is slimmed down. I don't know if you mean bigger in terms of physical stature, but Jelly Roll slimmed down lately too. But no, Post Malone's definitely the headliner there.
I did see that Jelly Roll is a little smaller than now. Now I just hear both their names, and to me, I don't know one bigger than the other. I just know probably more Post Malone stuff is what I would say. Jelly Roll, I don't know as much.
I'm an old man. The last concert I was at was like Foo Fighters in Camden about 5 years ago now. So it's been a minute.
Yeah, I used to go to a lot of concerts. I can't remember the last concert. I saw STP recently, not too long ago, but yeah, not with Scott Weiland. So I saw the new singer. What the heck's his name? Scott Goot or something to that effect. Not nearly as good. But that being said, rain delay for the Phils today. We're going to get into the Phils. A lot of people, have basically got to the end of the line with this team, 25 games into the season. Bob, is it too small of a sample size to start to generalize what this team is?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, look, the bullpen is thin. That's real. It's a real issue. In this lineup, as we know, we've seen enough of it to know that there's a lot of variance in it. When I say variance, it means that they can get real hot and they can pop a bunch of home runs. And you say, oh, look, Schwarber and Harper and Castellanos, and look at all these names and the pedigrees and all that. And then there's weeks like we've seen here recently where they go ice cold, and that together collectively, those five highest paid guys have one extra base hit in 3 games against the Mets and slugged .290 as a group. I mean, and when you have that type of variance offensively, your pitching really has to stand up. And unfortunately, when you have essentially 2 reliable relievers, you're going to be in some really tight games. And when the bullpen is underperforming, you're going to get what you got this past week. I think it's really a fair place to be in. Like, you can do small sample size and you can look at the calendar and talk about how it's April all you want. But I think that there's real issues on this team. Doesn't mean they're buried, but there's real issues here.
Okay, so let's kind of piece them first. All right, piece by piece. Bob Wankel, bullpen. Major problem. Agree with you there. Fixable, or is this urgent enough that you might have to do something outside the organization?
Well, I think that the answer's both. I think you're going to have to look for internal fixes, and you're going to need some of these guys to just pitch better that are up here. And you may have to go outside the organization as well. But it's just really hard. And I know that they have these championship expectations, and everyone says, like, you got to fix it right now. But it's hard to make trades. It's hard to make trades of consequence this early in the season because there's so few teams that are, calling it off right now on April 25th. So it's going to take some time. They're going to have to find some stabilizing forces until you get into July, where the trade market becomes a little bit more clear and obvious. Look, Ryan Kerkering has to be better. It seems like the tighter the game and the more high leverage the game, the more that he struggles, and the numbers back that up. I mean, he's been very hittable in tight spots, really dating back to the middle of last year. They need more out of him. They don't have a reliable guy from the right side right now that you feel like, okay, he's coming in, it's over. You look at that, and they're basically too deep. The only two guys you really feel good about at this moment are Strom and Alvarado. And you can't win many games when you have two reliable arms coming out of the bullpen. So I think that they will have to look internally. They have a lot of young guys that are interesting in the minor league levels, whether that be a Seth Johnson, who they acquired last year, whether that's a guy like I tweeted out the other night. I know you don't want to give up on starters long term, but when I see Mick Abel touching 97 in the 7th inning, like I say, like, man, given the need, like, might want to take a look at that, But I don't think they're going to be able to do anything externally here in the short term that really fixes this.
Yeah, I know. You're looking around. I've said for a while this rent a bullpen arm philosophy that the Phillies have kind of gone with. They have not developed any internal candidates to fill these positions. Orion Kerkering is about the only guy that I can think of that they've drafted that is their guy. You mentioned Seth Johnson. He came over in a trade last year. Can you see them doing something, I don't want to say drastic, but hey, Mick Abel, you're going to the bullpen. Something to that effect, where you had
feel like you're
arm
going
that
to
you
take. It doesn't feel like the Phillies to take a guy that you've had kind of pegged as a potential. I think that the story with Mick Abel and the expectations for Mick Abel in recent seasons have certainly changed. I don't think that there's quite the upside that there once was. I don't think there's great expectations for him. But I think that given the progress that he's made, and he's been, he's shown some encouraging signs here. I don't know that you want to pull the plug now that he's gaining some momentum as a starter and say, like, let's make him a bullpen arm just because we're struggling at the end of April. I don't think that they're there yet, but I do think that internally at some point, whether it be 3 or 4 weeks from now, if they are not seeing improvement at the major league level, and this isn't at least a passable bullpen, desperate times call for desperate measures, and maybe they reevaluate it at that point.
Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, talking Phils. The bullpen, major problem so far, one of the worst in baseball. What do you make of what Dombrowski kind of passed off with the whole Hoffman situation?
Thought that was very interesting. So for some context there, he met with reporters while they were up in New York before the final game of the Mets series, and it was Destiny Legardo, I believe, of Phillies Nation, had asked about the bullpen situation and had asked about Hoffman specifically. And, Dave more or less, said, look, we were interested. We were a player for Jeff Hoffman, and he wasn't willing to accept those terms. And by the time that his market came down, we had made our moves. And the way that I interpreted that, and I think a lot of people interpret it, was to say basically, like, look, yeah, we were interested in Jeff Hoffman. He didn't like our deal, and we made our investments, and we didn't have any more investments to make at that point. Sort of almost passing it off, saying, my hands were tied. I only have so much money I could spend, and our ownership in this particular situation this offseason wasn't willing to go in for extra. We had done Joe Ross, we had done Romano, and that was it for us. And, I think on a human level, at some point, if you hear everybody ripping you to shreds and saying, what are you doing with this bullpen? Why did you cheap out? You say, well, look, there's more to it than maybe you think. And that's what I got out of it. That's exactly what I got out of it.
Yeah, there's more than meets the eye on this one, potentially there. Jeff Hoffman is flourishing. Estevez has been kind of Estevez. He's good 4 nights a week. Then one night he has to blow up. But they're better than what you have currently right now. And we could go back and forth on, you said some of these guys just have to pitch better. I don't know. The one guy, I guess, would be Kerkering. I think they expected more from him, a bigger jump maybe from what he's giving them so far. I've been a big Kerkering guy, a little disappointing so far. I don't know what to think about Romano. He's given you no hope to say. He's throwing the ball hard. His stuff's still there. The ball he hit the other day was a little flare from Marte. I don't know that I say, hey, at some point, Jordan Romano is going to make me feel any better.
Well, look, as far as Romano goes, I'm not going to sit here and try to convince anybody that he's going to turn the corner and all of a sudden become an effective and an efficient late-inning, high-leverage arm. If you're looking for any glimmer of hope, though, the velocity is up. It was up on Saturday in that disastrous outing. It was up again over his season average on Wednesday. So you hope that maybe the arm is a little bit more live and then you can start making pitches. If you look at that inning and the way it unfolded, my issue was if you look at the double that Alonso hit, which is really what flipped that inning and turned it into a disaster for the Phillies, he gets ahead 0-2, which is great. And he actually makes a pitch on the black. And Alonso does a great job of just staying on it. And he's strong enough that he can split that gap in right center. But to me, it's like, why are you throwing a strike ahead 0-2 in a situation where you need a strikeout and you need Alonso to go outside the zone? And I know Alonso's a disciplined hitter, but I just don't know how you throw any strike, whether or not it's a good one, 0-2 in that spot. And it really just comes down to execution for Romano. And right now, his confidence has to be shot. And I know he's a veteran guy who's had some success, and maybe he bounces back and finds it. But right now, it's a hard sell on that idea.
All right, Bob. Starting pitching, not really a problem so far. I mean, Nola, though, that's going to be an interesting one, I think, anyway. You and I are going to probably talk about this throughout the summer. Suarez is probably due back. Now you got the whole thing with Sanchez. Painter's looming here. But does Nola get squeezed out as the guy, big picture here? And are any of those guys the guy they have to look at as possibly doing something with this roster?
Well, to answer the Nola question, you're talking about a guy that's under contract for another 6 years at $24 million a year. So is Aaron Nola going to get bumped out of the rotation? I don't think that Aaron Nola gets bumped out of the rotation unless he's 0-14 with a 7.5 ERA. I mean, he's a starting pitcher. His stuff doesn't play late in games. He throws 91.5 miles an hour max. He's going to max out at 92 when it gets warm. Like, it doesn't play out of the bullpen. So that's not a solution. And they just have too much invested in him, both in time and money, that they would turn him into a bullpen arm. Yeah, there is a surplus in theory as long as Christopher Sanchez is okay, and we'll probably have more clarity about that over the weekend. He was supposed to throw today, and we'll see how he responds to that. But the obvious candidate becomes Ranger Suarez, but as I've noted on this show, I've noted it on my podcast as well, he goes out and signs Scott Boras to be his agent, and he's entering a contract year. How excited is Ranger Suarez going to be about becoming a swingman in an overloaded rotation going into a contract year? I mean, Ranger Suarez is a good guy, and he's a good teammate, and maybe there'll be some willingness to take one for the team if they got to October. But to ask him to come back and be a bullpen piece, and the Phillies, for their part, have indicated that that's not the way that they're going to go when he comes back, at least. I just don't see it. And certainly Taijuan Walker's stuff doesn't play as a bullpen arm, as a late inning guy. So I don't know that there's a real obvious solution. I don't think that they can just clearly take their surplus of starting pitching at the major league level and convert one of these guys to an in-season, middle of the season anyway, solution as a bullpen arm, unfortunately.
Well, that's because, Bob, the two guys who have some bullpen experience, Suarez and Christopher Sanchez, has pitched out of the bullpen early in his career. Sanchez has been one of your best starters, so he would not be the guy.
It's not just that he's one of their best starters. He's been one of the best starters in baseball for a year and a month into this season. Those guys are too valuable to convert to hey, let's see if you can go get us some outs in the seventh. It just isn't. They're not going to do that.
Absolutely. And people are asking about Painter. I can't envision them sticking a guy who they're treating with such kid gloves and say, hey, now you're going to go pitch in the bullpen. We might need you every day. 1 inning today, 1 inning tomorrow. I can't imagine the way they're handling him that they would say to him, go pitch in the bullpen. Because I don't know if this was with you the other day, but, let's say this guy's Paul Skeens, okay? He's 8-1 with a 1.93 ERA from July to the end of the year. What are you going to do with him in the playoffs? You're going to say, go pitch in the bullpen? You've never done it before?
Yeah, so I think two things when it comes to Andrew Painter. I mean, you look at the fact that they have been very conservative with him. They want to limit his innings. You say, wow, well, getting him to pitch out of the bullpen is fantastic. That's a great way to do it. First of all, this is their best prospect. This is probably their best prospect that they have had in the last decade and a half. I think that this is the one guy that you can really – we talk about Ada Miller and Crawford and all these other guys, but Andrew Painter, I think, is the one guy that's looked at around the sport where you say, this guy is a dude. And I don't think that they really want to move him off of what the plan is for him, which is to be a frontline starter. And then not only are you then changing what he is at the major league level as you bring him up, but then you're also asking him to solve a major problem. Like, hey, here you go, kid. we are so deficient and so bad in this one area. We're going to pivot off of what our plan has been for you all along, and now we're going to turn you into a reliever. I don't think it works that way. And I also don't think that the Phillies are going to want to bring him in back-to-back days or have him throw 3 out of 4 days or do what is necessary with a bullpen arm. Like, those spots require a certain amount of workload, a certain amount of bounce back, a certain amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Resilience physically. And I just don't think that you want to take those risks. So while the innings would be diminished and you say, great, that's a way to keep him under his limit, that's taxing in an entirely different way. And it's not something that he's been trained or programmed or brought up to do. So I just don't think that that's the natural fit.
Yeah, it's going to be that whole story. I think is going to be an interesting one. How does that materialize over when he's ready to pitch? How he pitches? How the other guys are performing? And then how do you justify? I got a guy who's been, dominating in a short amount of time. Potentially, we don't know. Painter could come up here and struggle. We're playing the other card where he maybe pitches really well, and you tell him you're not going to be one of the guys in the rotation, but Aaron Nola at 4-13 with an ERA of 5.29 is going to get a postseason start. That would be an interesting conundrum that this team ends up possibly. That's if they make the playoffs. A way they could not make the playoffs is if their offense continues to go the way that it's going, Bob. Somebody yesterday we had Dave Gallagher on who played with the Phillies, has been a 9-year Major League Baseball veteran, and he said, look, the team in his mind as a former player needs a shakeup. He's watching them, and he's at the point where they need some sort of shakeup. You can't keep shaking this lineup up. They've tried every which way. Him at the top, him in the 4, you at 2, him at 3, him at 7, you're at 8. So are we getting to the point where that's the answer, is that Dave Dombrowski is just going to have to say, one of you guys that have been here for a while, I'm sorry, I got to break this up?
They look like a team that's very comfortable, and they look like a team that desperately needs to have their cage rattle a little bit. I agree with Dave, and I'm not a big fire this guy or trade this guy for pennies on the dollar or make a move just for the sake of making a move kind of guy. But the fact of the matter is that they have been getting diminishing returns now year over year over year, and this looks like the same lifeless group of guys that really, they look like they're going through a slog. They look like a team that's 10 games under 500 in August, going through the grind right now, and they're a team that has playoff aspirations, championship aspirations. They don't look like they're having fun. They don't look like they have energy. And I know that baseball is a game where if you get a couple key hits and you get some momentum, all of a sudden it looks like guys are playing with some enthusiasm and with some life. And it's about you have to do a job to create that momentum. The success on the field is what creates that vibe and that juice. So those things, it's like what comes first here, but they look lifeless. They look uninspired far too often. And I'm a Rob Thompson guy in general. I know a lot of your listeners aren't. I see that online. I see the discourse. And I think that when you're saying to yourself on Wednesday, how does Rob Thompson go to Jordan Romano in this spot? I guess my question would be, who would you like Rob Thompson to go to in that spot? He's very limited. And so you can talk about, well, he doesn't have a lot of moves to make. This team is short and deficient in a lot of different areas. But I do think it's a valid criticism to say that those guys sleptwalked through the entire second half of last season. They didn't turn it on in October. They did not play with urgency the entire second half of the year. They have not played with urgency or life in the beginning of this season. And they seem to mimic the personality of their manager. And I think it is fair at some point to say, well, do they need a different voice? Do they need a different direction? And is it a player? Is it sending out another one of these core veterans via trade that's going to shake these guys up? Is it Kevin Long, who a lot of these guys have respect for and like and trust? Is it Rob? What is it? At some point, though, it's professional sports. Whether or not it's an overreaction or it's unfair or it's whatever you think it is, it's about production. And if it's not working and you're not getting a return on the investment, you have to do something. And unfortunately, it might come at the expense of one of these guys' jobs.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the other day some of the mechanics of stuff that Rob has done. What are some of these things that that Rob has done maybe in-game that are costing this team? Because if that continues to happen, I think those are things that you can look at. Is this happening regularly? Is this something that he does often? What are some of these things that – because I think, to me, Thompson – you set the culture, you kind of execute the plan that the organization wants. People get mad. Hey, Sosa has 2 hits. He's right-handed. Why do you hit Stott? Well, the answer is a right-handed pitcher. He's too tied to that. Those type of decisions people don't like. Kepler hit for Wilson the other day. Well, it was all in the same game. He hit all 3 guys. And I think this happens with the Phillies a lot because they are so left-handed that when you watch them, they do it a lot more than other teams because of how left-handed they are. Is this the game? Is this the Phillies? So what are some of the things that Rob maybe does that can and should be questioned?
Well, one of the things I've seen people question, which I actually don't agree with, is how do you pinch it for Johan Rojas late in a game with a guy like Cal Stevenson, who had no success at AAA, and Johan Rojas is red hot right now. For me, I understand those things, but I would tell you, here's something that I think is representative of the way they do things sometimes where I don't get it. You go back to Saturday's game, and Taijuan Walker had those 2 long, up downs where the Phillies put together good innings early in the game, and he had some stiffness, and they were very cautious with Taijuan Walker and get him out of the game after the 4th inning. No problem with that, right? You have to protect your guys, you have to protect your arms. My issue is that who comes out in the 5th inning? Matt Strahm. And so now Matt Strahm has to pitch on Saturday at what at the time I believe was a 9-1 game in the 5th inning. And then you have to use them because things get out of hand on Sunday and you get yourself into a game that you didn't plan to be in. Then you have to use Strahm on Sunday. Well, then you get into a spot on Monday that if you need Matt Strahm, and they were trailing late and they make the rally late, so it didn't really come back to bite them in this particular instance, but Matt Strahm's not available. Why are we using him in a 9-1 game on a Saturday in the 5th inning, no less? Not when the game got tight, but when you had a huge lead. What are we doing here? And I feel like a lot of times Rob goes out of his way to protect certain guys, but then he puts them into situations needlessly where then he's not able to utilize them later. And that I don't get.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I definitely – the bullpen thing, we talked about this yesterday with Dave Gallagher, is how hard is it to manage a team when you have no trust in your bullpen, right? That is the hard part about this. You mentioned it earlier. People will complain. I think the basis of the conversation that was sparked was, how do you go to Romano here? Your response is, well, quite frankly, what other choice does he have? Because if he puts Ruiz in the game, the next response is, how do you put Ruiz in the game here? And if he doesn't put Ruiz in, is how do you put Hernandez in the game here? He has no real options. So I think you're right. He ends up going to the guys that he trusts way too much, and then you burn them out.
But again, this situation is compounded by the fact that they're not able to separate late in games because they don't do well situationally. And if this team is built for slug, it's probably worth pointing out that they're 21st in team slugging percentage right now, and they're 22nd in home runs per game. You have a situation where Kyle Schwarber has cooled off a little bit. You have a situation where Nick Castellanos had 1 hit in that series against the Mets. Wouldn't it be nice if the shortstop that you're paying $300 million to made a difference, was a difference maker? I'm not talking about a guy that goes 5 for 7 on Saturday and Sunday against the Marlins to raise his average from 220 to 260. I'm talking about a guy that's an impact player that can take over a big moment late in a game. And we saw Trey Turner 2 times, both on Monday and Wednesday, fail in those situations. You're talking about a guy, there's 21 qualified shortstops in Major League Baseball right now that have enough at bats to qualify for major statistical categories. He's 16th in OPS right now, 669 OPS. As of yesterday morning, J.P. Crawford had a 714 OPS. What are we talking about here? So if Trey Turner does his job, if Bryce Harper plays at an MVP level, if Kyle Schwarber hits, if JT Realmuto isn't hitting, a 220 with 1 home run. Their third baseman right now, Mike, who's on a 10-game hitting streak. He uses all fields. He's a slap hitter. He's got 100 at-bats this season. He doesn't have a home run yet. I mean, come on. So because this offense isn't doing what it's supposed to do, every game is tight, and then you have a bad bullpen that's being exposed to a greater degree if they could just hit the ball. So that's really the essence of what the Phillies are going through right now.
Yeah, I think one of the big numbers I looked at, Bob, Bohm and Marsh last year in April combined for almost 50 RBI. 50. They have 11 right now, total. the two of them. That's a huge gap in your production that you had last year that you don't have now. So that needs to be figured out. What you're going to do in center field. Is Bohm ever going to pick it back up, or is he just a guy who's going to spray the ball all over the place, 1 for 4 every other night? So
did you know that Alec Bohm right now, even with the 10-game hitting streak, I just throw this out here for you so you can see how bad this is. So he's on pace to have 648 at-bats this season. He's on pace to hit 26 doubles, 6 triples, no home runs, knock in 39 runs, and walk 6 times. This man has been to the plate 103 times. He's been hit by a pitch twice. He's walked once. He's put the ball in play the other 100. I mean, that is – he has been atrocious, Mike.
I have been a Bohm guy. He's been terrible this year, and that's what I'm saying. He has been a guy who has driven in almost 200 runs for you the last 2 years, and you are getting nothing from him, so you're not getting that production from anybody else. We could play the same game with Trey Turner. I mean, I love, if we could amnesty that deal. Do you think the Phillies would get out of that deal?
In a heartbeat. Okay. And look, in fairness, is he capable of going on a run here where he has one of those 7-game stretches where he hits 6 home runs and he hits 500 for a week, and then all of a sudden the overall statistics look fine? You say, oh, look, you guys panicked. You were on him for nothing. Yeah, he has that in him. But the fact of the matter is that he's just so wildly inconsistent, and there's just no way to frame it where you cannot say that he has been underwhelming and that you have not been overall disappointed with what he's given you, and that you don't have some degree of concern about what that's going to look like for the duration of this contract. And by the way, I'm a big analytics, baseball savant, swing speed, hit speed, exit velo, swing, the whole deal. He's 18th in expected batting average of those 21 qualified shortstops. He's 19th in expected slugging percentage. His numbers are not a product of bad luck. They're just not. He just hasn't been good.
I agree. Great stuff, Bob. As always, we'll check him back out after the weekend, the Phillies and the Cubbies. Well, I wanted to go to this series, but unfortunately, some other thing happened in life that I can't get out there. However, I'll be watching. Rain delay today. Supposed to start up around 4. Thanks, buddy.
All right, man. Talk soon.
Bob Wankel, Crossing Broad, covers the Phillies, longtime Phillies guy here on the Sports Bash. Just an all-around good baseball guy, good baseball conversations every Friday right here on the Sports Bash. When we come back, Jihaad Campbell is the newest Philadelphia Eagle. What does draft expert Rick Serritella think about the fit and the pick and what could be next? Find out next when he joins me live on the Sports Bash. We are at Boardwalk Honda with the Eagles Super Bowl championship trophy. A lot of people stopping out and getting their picture taken today. I'll tell you what, it's been a hot item, and there's a spot for you to get your picture taken too. Come on out and see us right here on Tilton Road in EHT.
You're listening to the Sports Bash with Mike Gill.
And it just keeps getting better.
On 97.3 ESPN and the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app.
All right, day one of the draft in the books. It was an interesting night. Got off to a little bit of a slow start. Then it hit you quick. Then it slowed back down. And then it picked back up. It shifted gears all over the place. We're at Boardwalk Honda. There's plenty of cars here that you might want to jump into and take a test drive, or just come out and see what all those teams last night were trying to play for, a chance to win the Lombardi Trophy, and we have it here at Boardwalk Honda on Tilton Road in Egg Harbor Township. Rick Serritella is back from the NFL Draft Bible All Access. He joins us now with first-round thoughts on what happened last night. Let's start from the back to the front, from the front to the back, and get your thoughts on it, man. Eagles 32. They make a late trade to move up one spot and get Jihaad Campbell, the linebacker. Kind of a surprise to many that they took that player, that position, I should say. But the player, thoughts on that player, fit and pick?
Well, yeah, I listened to you break down every possible trade scenario yesterday, Mike, but you didn't come up with this one, right? Move up one spot with your Super Bowl competitor to nab arguably a top 10 overall talent, right? And so that's what you're getting in Jihaad Campbell. Remember, this guy ran an incredible 4.52 40-yard dash. He ran faster than a lot of the running backs in attendance at the combine, and that speaks to his range, his lateral movement, side to sideline, hair on fire type of player. Oh, by the way, do you know that he can be used as a situational pass rusher? So I think that he fell because at the combine, obviously he had the torn labrum surgery. Now he may not be ready for the start of the season, right? You have him, Nakobe Dean on the mend. Not ideal for training camp, but this is a long-term vision.
Yeah, you take a look at Campbell, and in your mind, what he did at the college level, people are trying to project what he might be at the pro level. And last night, Howie Roseman didn't want to pigeonhole him. He didn't want to say this is what he is. What do you think he will excel at in the NFL?
Well, Mike, I think he's still feeling his oats in terms of instincts and natural feel, and his best football is in front of him. He did not start for a long time. He bided his time patiently. So I think he still needs to face more live bullets. But I think ultimately he's going to be an off-ball linebacker who can, in situations, you mismatch him, get him lined up against the tight end maybe, and make him go get after the quarterback. He did that in a very effective capacity for the Crimson Tide.
Rick Serritella is with us, looking at the NFL Draft, what happened last night, some things that could happen tonight, NFL Draft Bible. And, Rick, the Eagles get Campbell, off-ball linebacker who they can maybe move around, maybe rush the passer here and there. It was kind of an outside-the-box thought. I mean, there was no part of me that thought that was a player that they would take. I don't know how much we even talked about him leading up to the draft. Howie Roseman, though, said, we made the move to get him because he was a top 10 player on our board. Where did you ultimately see him on your board?
Well, Mike, when I do the final rankings, I do factor in the medical. So I think he was somewhere in the 20s, 22, 29 type of range. But if you just go basically off of pure talent and upside and potential, then yes, he's closer to a top 10, top 12 in this draft. Anyway, and I do think that there's a little bit some raw elements to his game in terms of the angles that he takes. The open field tackling needs to be a little bit more cleaner and crisp and more consistent. But again, I think you're talking about a projection, which is the NFL draft. His best football has yet to be played. And I think that's what the exciting aspect is. And listen, he may have to redshirt the first half of the season or till the Eagles bye week, but that's okay because he could be a starter for the next decade.
All right, well, we'll keep our eye on that. He does have the shoulder issues, yes, that some say he might need to get surgery on. We'll see what happens there. So Campbell, 31 to Philadelphia. What do you make of they traded up one spot, fifth-round pick? Roseman said essentially we didn't want anybody to move over us. we were laughing because it's like Roseman just had to do something. He could not do something. He gives away a 5th-round pick. Not huge value to move the one spot. But when that happened, I would like to get into your mind of like, why did he do this? Oh, I know why he's doing this. What's the thought process from Roseman there?
Well, part of me wants
and by the way, when he made that move, was there a player in mind that you thought he moved the spot to get?
Well, he likes the SEC, big school pedigree, so I had a feeling it was for Campbell because I was shocked that he was still on the board. And you heard from other folks from around the league that he's a top 10 talent. I didn't think he would slide this far, so I thought it was Campbell. As soon as I heard the trade, Campbell was the first guy that came to mind. Now, part of me was like, you know what? Here's how he's flexing, maybe being a little cute. All right, but he does have respect for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't know if he was concerned with somebody jumping him. Maybe that was part of it. I think the other part of it, like Kansas City didn't think twice about drafting Nick Bolton a couple years back. Undersized, question mark linebacker, panned out pretty well for them. I'm thinking, maybe Kansas City was contemplating it. Maybe somebody was going to jump up in front of them. Maybe Howie just had so many picks at his disposal, he wanted to flex his muscles a little bit and ended on a wow.
All right, let's go inside the NFC East. The Giants, Carter. I think that pick well received. They then trade back in. They have a choice of quarterback, and this is where one of the big reflections will be 5 years from now. Dart versus Sanders. Talk about that decision by the Giants.
Well, they clearly had a plan, and I thought they executed it to a T, Mike. You can argue who you prefer at quarterback, but, I did the Giants show this morning. I wasn't aware that Joe Shane's daughter attends Ole Miss. So she had a lot of inside intel to feed back to her father. Not only that, Joe Judge was a consultant there. You have Charlie Weiss Jr., who was the offensive coordinator, who has Giants connections. So Brian Daboll, I guess, fell in love apparently at the Senior Bowl with Jackson Dart, and that's when they began to court him. And we should have known when Joe Shane's son posted the highlight film of Jackson Dart the night before the draft and then set his Instagram to private, we should have known that something was up. But clearly Shane had a plan. They executed to a T. How it plays out remains to be seen. The NFL, the judge has spoken on Shedeur Sanders, but we're a far long ways away until the jury has spoken, Mike. This is going to be a fascinating case study for years to come.
Would you have gone Dart or Sanders?
Oh, I would have. Sanders is my number one quarterback in the draft. And apparently
so you would have taken, if you're Tennessee, you would have gone Sanders.
Well, I was going to say, apparently I need to spend 15 minutes behind closed doors with Shedeur Sanders, and my opinion might change because everything that we apparently hear turns out it is true. So we shall see.
Dallas goes guard at number 12, and a lot of people, criticizing this pick, not the player so much, but saying, hey, you're in the 12 spot. You were bad enough that you earned that spot. You take a guard, Tyler Booker, Alabama, very good player. Not people criticizing the player so much, but you go guard when you are at that, spot in the draft.
Well, when I think about the Dallas Cowboys at their prime, at their best, they've always had a dominant offensive line, Mike. And I think they need to get back to replenishing the trenches. And I don't understand that logic, quite frankly, because the way that the NFL now, with the interior pass rush, the amount of teams that have these interior pass rushers up the middle, guard is, immensely valuable, in my opinion. Go ask the Eagles. They're looking to plug one in themselves. So I don't buy that logic. I think guards are tremendously undervalued. And I love the pick. I love the player. It makes a lot of sense. When the last time Dallas was competitive and Ezekiel Elliott was eating all those yards, they had a dominant offensive line. When they were winning Super Bowls, they had a dominant offensive line. So that's a formula that has worked and has been proven for them.
Washington gets a tackle. It seems like what good teams do. They make the boring picks. Not an exciting pick with Corley, but is that a smart pick for Washington?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, how do you not love this? Because not only do they go out and get Laramie Tunsil, then they double down with Josh Connerly, who I think is a great fit at right tackles. He's a plug-and-play starter. So now protect the franchise. Jaden Daniels, he's running around the field. He's like the second coming of Fran Tarkenton, taking all these hits. Let's protect them the best to our ability. And I'll tell you what, I'm looking at Washington here, potentially maybe to add a running back. What if the Commanders add like a Cameron Scattaboo to the backfield now on day 2? That's what I'm looking for the Commanders to do.
All right, tonight, day 2, you mentioned it, Sanders there, Browns, they're hanging out, starting this baby off. Is this a fait accompli, or does round 2 also get interesting for Mr. Sanders?
I think it could get interesting, Mike, because I think yesterday was a foreshadowing of today, and that, there's truth to the eye that meets the surface of all these rumors and poor interviews. And now it's just a matter like the Steelers, Mason Rudolph's your quarterback, and you bypassed him. So that tells me, and like Mike Tomlin can handle big-time personalities, that shouldn't scare him off. So something tells me there's more than something we must be missing, because I don't think it's based purely on talent. Now, Cleveland needs a quarterback, right? So all the financial risk has been eliminated. If they bypass on Shador here with the first pick on day 2, I don't know how long he's going to wait, because there's no risk. If he doesn't pan out, you move on to the next. There's no financial obligation here.
Any guys that are still available that, number one, surprised that did not go last night?
Well, I don't know if it's surprising, because I guess the talk is he has a degenerate knee. But Will Johnson, I would have thought like maybe his old coach Jimmy Harbaugh would have made a play for him. I had him number 9, I think, overall on my big board. So from a talent perspective, this guy's just hanging out. But does he get to the second contract? Probably not. However, I mean, when you're talking about a guy like coming into the season, he was the one we were talking about with the Heisman hype and length and athleticism. So I'm looking forward to seeing where Will Johnson lands today.
The Eagles sitting all the way down at number 64. That's an interesting spot. People texting in Kevin Winston. You've also got Emanwari, the safety. Those two guys. Emanwari, many had as number 1 on their safety board. I think you had Starks. What'd you say? Bobby Brown was your 2?
Yeah, Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma.
Billy Bowman. Bobby Brown, I'm thinking of my prerogative over
That's
here.
my prerogative.
I know you're a Jersey Shore guy, man. I know you're a Jersey Shore guy. Well, my prerogative. Billy Bowman. Jeez. Emanwari, though, did not go last night. Interesting to see if the Eagles find a guy today that they want to move up to go after.
Yeah, well, we talked about it yesterday. The athleticism and traits that you saw at the combine don't exactly match up to the film. Emanwari has so many missed tackles. That's not exactly a guy that I want to hang my hat on. So I think that it's a very good reason why he's still here. Listen, Mike, these Georgia guards, Tate Ratledge and Dylan Fairchild, I think could be in play for the Eagles. Xavier Watts out of Notre Dame is also a very good-looking safety. And I don't know if Kevin Winston makes it that far, but I love this guy. His length, he can play in the box. He can freelance in center field. Kevin Winston coming off that ACL, like that's where you roll the dice. You got the risk-reward upside, a guy who would have went in the first round coming off an ACL. You try to catch lightning in a bottle here, but, one makes you wonder, 2 Georgia offensive guards with experience and pedigree just hanging out there for Howie Roseman. I don't know if he's going to be able to resist.
All right, Rick Serritella, everybody, here on the Sports Bash Live, round 2 and round 3 tonight. You can hear that right here on 97.3 ESPN. Tomorrow, really the guts of the game. The 4 through 7 round starts at noon, and you can listen to that every pick on 97.3 ESPN. The Eagles, of course, traded one of their picks away, that 5th rounder, to get up one spot to get Campbell in round number 1. Did you have a team last night, Rick, that you said, love it, can't wait to tell Mike Gill how much I love what they did?
Well, how about the Jacksonville Jaguars? I mean,
you like that trade? You like that?
Yeah,
deal?
I mean, Cleveland outsmarted themselves. I'm saying, like, evaluators spend their entire career trying to discover a talent such as Travis Hunter. Like, that's a foundational building block that you build a franchise around. No wonder why they're always picking atop the draft. How do you bypass a talent like Travis Hunter? Jacksonville's the biggest winner all day.
I said with Cleveland got plenty of value, but I don't like what they did with the pick. Just stay there. If you wanted to take Mason Graham, just take Campbell. Take Carter at that spot. I know they got a ton of stuff. I just didn't like what they ended up with. Take Hunter, take Carter, and you end up with Mason Graham. I like the mindset of getting the value. I don't like what they ended up doing. So I kind of agree with you that Jacksonville makes out here.
Yeah, I think 10 years from now, Travis Hunter is going to be the best player from this draft. To pair him with Myles Garrett, that could have been a dominant duo.
All right, buddy. Thanks for jumping on again today. I know you're busy this time. You got a whole bunch of stuff. Go to All Access at NFL Draft Bible and follow all Rick's draft coverage. And then maybe Monday we'll recap the whole thing and then set the stage for training camp, see how all these picks fit in right here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, man.
Appreciate you, Mike.
All right, Rick Serritella, everybody. He's been great during the draft. Appreciate having him on. He does all the videos on All Access with Brian Baldinger, and you can check them all out at NFL Draft Bible. I actually have the email in my email box every morning with all their updates, and they have their mock draft day 2 with the Philadelphia Eagles selecting on day number 2 Dylan Fairchild, an offensive guard from Georgia, who he hinted at there. And then as we get into round 3, we're taking a look at names that you say, all right, Eagles, Alfred Collins, a defensive tackle from Texas. So a name to keep an eye on draft night tonight. We'll have plenty more for you next hour. Adam Caplan, football at 4. We'll get Adam's take on the draft, what he heard, what he thinks, and what could happen tonight. The role for Campbell, what is he hearing about what Campbell's role could be? Why did he drop? How is this player seen around the NFL by other teams? And who are some names that you guys should keep an eye on in round 2 and in round 3? Plus, we'll go around the NFC East for today's Football at 4 with Adam Caplan, and that's coming up next. We are live at Boardwalk Honda on Tilton Road in EHT. The championship Eagles trophy is with us. Stop on
It's
out.
Phillies baseball on 97.3 ESPN.
Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN Radio. It's a showdown at Wrigley Field.
Fly ball well hit right field. It is gone. A solo shot for Harper.
Bryce Harper and the Philadelphia Phillies go head-to-head with Kyle Tucker and the Chicago Cubs.
And it is gone! Kyle Tucker.
Listen to Sunday Night Baseball on 97.3 ESPN. Coverage begins at 6 p.m.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast set to join us today for today's Football at 4 as the Eagles surprised some last night, taking Jihaad Campbell in the first round. They traded up one spot to do so. They go from number 32 to number 31. They give up a fifth-round pick, one of 4 fifth-rounders that they had to make the pick. We'll dive into that and more coming up in just a moment here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Adam Caplan, of course, and the guys over at InsideTheBirds.com last night, their podcast. I'm sure they had plenty of things that they got into for last night's pick. And then, of course, tonight, one of the things we'll dive into with Adam when he joins us here is, hey, what kind of role will Campbell have? That's one of the things. What is he hearing about the role that Campbell might have with the team this year as they bring in an off-ball kind of a hybrid player, an off-ball linebacker who is also a guy who can rush the passer? How do they, last night, I think one of the big questions was about Nakobe Dean and whether or not this is something about Nakobe Dean's health or whether or not this is an addition to Nakobe Dean. And one of the things that Howie Roseman mentioned last night was, no, this has nothing to do with Nakobe. We have a top 10 player on our board, and we had a chance to take him at number 31. Well, then we're going to get that done. So I think it was a very surprising pick. I never saw this one coming, really. Not a pick that I was like, oh, man, especially when they made the trade up. When they made the trade up, they were in a situation where I'm watching this and saying, who are they trading up to get? When they made the trade, now it's 11:27. I'm running on a little bit of fumes. And when that happens at 11:27 last night, my thought is they trade up one spot. Who do they want to take? Well, Adam Caplan, a little bit of a surprise to me anyway, that they would go with this player, Jihaad Campbell, a linebacker by trade. But what will his role be? We'll get into that. But when they made trade one spot up, Adam, did you have a player in your mind you thought they were targeting? Were you surprised with this pick?
Yeah, Mike, I thought they would go corner. I really did, because Jeff and I knew that there are 3 or 4 corners they really liked in the first 2 rounds. Will Johnson, who's still on the board. Now, he had a medical issue, which is knee. And he's scheme specific, I'm told. I was told by a scout today who had his area that's going to be a problem for Philly. Or for some teams, not Philly specifically, but overall for a lot of teams. Siobhan Ravel, who's come back from ACL from East Carolina, but by the way, would go in the first round without the ACL. He was not going to go in the first round unless you're a team like Philly or Kansas City who does it. You're so good, you're not worried about the guy playing early on. But no, I definitely didn't know it was going to be Jihaad Campbell. In fact, look, if you would have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said there's no way they're drafting an inside backer or a linebacker, no matter how good they thought he was. But it wasn't a guy that I did a ton of homework on for when it came to the Eagles. I knew who he was and how good he was. But as Greg Cosell told us today, we dropped a really cool show Jeff and I did this morning. Greg broke him down like nobody else. You could get him on YouTube or any podcasting platform. Campbell is very new to this position, the inside backer position. He's only played it for 2 years. He went to Alabama, who was going to be an edge rusher. He barely played his first year. Got moved to inside backer year 2 with by the way, pass rushing responsibilities. He still was an edge rusher, no question about that. He did both. But what's interesting, Jeff and I got a lot of opinions right before we went to sleep last night and this morning and today. Everybody loved him. One team told me, and I actually talked about this on today's show, the problem with inside backer is because he's come back from labrum surgery, it is a high traffic position. And when you take on contact and you give contact, it is a top 5 injury position, by the way. I didn't know that. That's the first time I'd heard that. It's when teams put out their injury information, it's a top 5 position to get hurt. So that has something to do with it.
Adam, last night they tried to pry it out of Howie Roseman. He didn't really want to budge, but where do people see Campbell's role for this season?
Yeah, it's a good question. So what people need to understand is, you could speculate and guess that he'll have this Andrew Van Ginkel role, which is what we were told. It's ironic. less than a year ago now, when Zach Bond came over, nobody knew other than what we'd reported was they wanted Van Ginkel. We've reported at this time. They would not pay him because he was coming back from a broken foot. They just couldn't justify the cash, but they wanted him. And Vic obviously created that role where he's a hybrid player out of necessity because of injury. He played inside and outside backer. Well, actually, I'm sorry. Let me put it in Vic language: inside backer and edge rusher. So he did that for Miami, and they thought Bond could do a little bit of that, and then he took so well inside backer, they never cross-trained him to play outside, to play edge rusher. So here it's going to be a couple things here. Let me explain kind of where they're at with this and how other teams see it. First, Mike, real quick. Let me just explain this. They won't know until he gets cleared to practice. And by the way, he's come back from labrum surgery, which he had in March. So you're talking about around training camp. You hope that he gets on the field. The other thing is he's got to take contact. So you don't know nobody knows exactly what he'll be able to do this season or can't do. Just like DeJean last year, who was going to play cornerback, and then he wound up not playing it because why? He was drafted to play corner, and then he was not ready. So they gave him something they thought he could handle. So is that what they'll do with Campbell? That remains to be seen. But the Eagles do see him, by the way, as the ability to play edge and linebacker. But how much he plays at each position, they won't know until they get a look at him. He's just not clear to do anything yet.
Yeah, so his role this year could be different than his role, in years 2, 3, and 4, down the line.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, Mike, that's the point. We try not to make any assumptions unless we're told so. Nothing we've been told since he was drafted suggests that he's going to only do one thing. Now, what I found interesting is Campbell did say in his interview last night that Jeremiah Washburn, as the edge rushers coach, talked to him. That doesn't mean that Bobby King didn't, by the way, who's the inside backers coach. So try not to this is what happens on social media, whether you're on YouTube or X. A lot of people are running, he's only going to do this. Well, nobody knows that. You have to be very careful. I thought Greg Cosell was brilliant today. Listen to what Greg said. Greg has I know Greg talks to their coaches, so he would know, but he just talking about from the tape. Campbell is not super instinctive as an inside backer. Just so people need to understand that because he's new to it, and that it's going to take time, Mike, as we move along here. People just need to be patient and not be he's only going to do this or that. That's not the case.
Right. All right, Adam. He's at 31. Last night, Howie Roseman said there's a top 10 player on our board. So why was he at 31?
So it was the shoulder, as I mentioned earlier, Mike. And this is one other thing, and it played into what we just talked about. Teams are kind of mixed on what he could be. Some saw him as a guy that, because he's so explosive as an inside backer, keep him there. Some saw him doing both. Well, it was like with DeJean last year. Some teams saw him starting off a nickel, which the Eagles did, by the way, which is not the original plan. But some teams saw him as a corner. Some teams saw him as a safety, by the way. You got to have a position eventually, and that's something that I thought clubs struggled with a little bit.
Did you say a safety?
I talked to former. Yeah, I'm talking about DeJean last year. Yeah, some teams. I'm not saying the Eagles. Some teams did. DeJean Cooper.
No, I thought you were talking about Campbell. I was like, man, he'd be
no.
Go ahead.
No. I'm just comparing. I'm comparing both because both are very similar to how clubs let Cooper DeJean drop to the second round. Well, because they weren't sure he was going to play. Well, Jihaad Campbell, yes, had an injury concern. So did Cooper DeJean, by the way, coming off a broken leg, which he suffered in November of last year or 2 years ago. So they got to make a decision, though, pretty early on. They can't have them going back-to-back rooms. To me, it's a lot to ask, Mike. I think it's a lot to ask early on, but only they know, so we'll find out.
So how is he seen around the league by other teams in terms of where they might play him? Or is it up in the air where people are kind of interested and didn't know what to do with him?
Yeah, mixed, Mike. But I'll tell you what, the cool thing, a former general manager who's working for another team told me that he thought that not only was Campbell the best overall linebacker for this draft, that says a lot, though. That then comes to 43 outside backers, weak side, strong side, 34 inside backers like the Eagles run. The Eagles run. I mean, Eagles are running odd man front. You could call it whatever the hell you want to call it, but it's really a true 34 that looks like a 5'2" or 5'1". Bottom line is, Mike, when you look at this player, and by the way, as an edge rusher, he's super explosive. He's 6'2" and 5'8", Mike, which is not tall enough to be an edge rusher typically, but his wingspan is over 80, which is really long, and he's super explosive. So he could be a hybrid player like Andrew Van Ginkel. He's just really talented. Everyone loved this pick that Jeff and I talked to. It's very rare, by the way, when you talk to people around the NFL and the guys picked at 31st in the first round, that everybody loves him, but it seems like everybody does.
All right. Well, there's Campbell. He gets the pick at 31 for Howie Roseman. We joked that, Roseman just couldn't handle himself. He had to give up a fifth rounder to move up one spot. He had to do something on draft night. He just couldn't wait. But he does get the guy that essentially they targeted by moving up there.
Yeah.
Now they have a pick 64. They are a little bit further up in the third round here. So let's talk about some round 2 and 3 targets. They got a linebacker. They still have a lot of other things they need. So give us some thoughts on that, Adam. Some 2 and 3 round targets.
Yeah. So Mike, obviously they weren't going to get Walter Nolan at 116, which we said we in all of our platforms we said it's highly unlikely he'd make it there, and they have to trade way up, which we were told they were not going to do. By the way, there was a certain spot in the 20s they would have traded up for, but he didn't get anywhere close to it. So T.J. Sanders is a guy from South Carolina who's got second-round grades from a lot of teams. We're told there's a D tackle they could look at. Shamar Turner, who's the other Shamar, or however you say it, Shamar Turner from Texas A&M. He's the other. Stewart is the other Shamar that went from Texas A&M, but he went in the first round. Who, by the way, I don't want to say he was a reach, but he's a project that he went to the Bengals, typical Bengals pick. He's a long-range player. There are plenty of edge rushers. Nick Scourton, another Texas A&M player who's an edge rusher. Mason Taylor, who's a tight end who was not going to go in the first round. There's no chance of that, but he certainly should go in the second round, probably before the Eagles. Kevin Winston, who the Eagles like a lot, who's coming back with an ACL injury. Mike, he tore it last summer. He had a good combine workout despite that. Xavier Watts, the Eagles love, who's a safety from Notre Dame, led all of college football the last 2 years in interceptions. Will Johnson, the Eagles like, is a corner from Michigan. He's coming back from a knee issue. And Landon Jackson, who's that edge rusher from Arkansas, who's a very interesting player. Donovan Ezeraku, who's still there from South Jersey. I had a scout tell me that he actually gave him a third-round grade. He said, here's the thing with Ezeraku. High upside in terms of edge rush, but he's got a small frame, not a factor against the run, and you got to use him the right way, and he's not going to be for everybody. So that's that. Third round, Makuba, the safety from Texas. Arroyo, the tight end from Miami, who's got injury concerns, but who's very athletic. Terrence Ferguson is a tight end for Oregon. There's some offensive linemen. So there are plenty of players, Mike. Although they're picking, obviously, last in both rounds, there are plenty of players they could take a look at.
All right, Adam Caplan, round 3 is another spot where, and you mentioned Ezeraku. Some people had first-round mock drafts, had him going there. Yeah. He would be an interesting guy. You pair him up with Campbell. You get 2 South Jersey guys possibly playing here. But round 3, you take a look a little deeper. But tonight, the Eagles do have those 2 picks, so it's another opportunity to add players. And, Howie has those extra fifth-rounders still, too. So he could be moving around here. So who are some guys in round 3 to keep an eye on?
Yeah, and they've got 8 picks next year. You can't trade the 4 projected compensatory picks, but they know they can trade those other ones because they're going to have the compensatory picks, so they could have as many as 12 picks next year. So, yeah, they could decide to trade up in round 2. Trey Amos is a guy we've talked a lot about on Inside the Birds. They like to add him in for a visit. They could trade up in round 2 to get him. Round 3 is a little bit harder, Mike. Let me define round 2. Round 1 is high-end starter. Round 2s are mid-level starters. Round 3 are bottom-end starters. 4th round are high-end backups. So you're looking at guys like Elijah Royal, who he only has 1 year of production. He does have an injury history, pretty significant. He had an ACL injury early in his football playing career. Dylan Fairchild is a guard out of Georgia. Some teams tell me he might play center. Makuba is a safety that we've talked about out of Texas, who's got really good ball skills, small frame. Those are just some of the names, Mike. What happens is we learned this in the Marcus Smith draft when the Eagles were picking at maybe 26 in 2014. You got to have like 15, 20 players that you've graded at that pick because your board's going to get hit, particularly when you pick at the back of each round.
All right, well, looking forward to what happens tonight. There's a good possibility that Howie gets a little trigger happy tonight and starts moving around, bouncing around. We'll see, because he was, a little patient last night, and he ended up still getting the guy that he wanted. We'll see if he can be patient 2 nights in a row. But let's go inside the NFC East with Adam Caplan real quick. The Cowboys, you're in the 12 spot. I don't know if this is more about, not the right player. But did you like – they seem to go safe with a guard here. Did you like what the Cowboys did?
From a value standpoint, it's not a smart move, but from a really good player, he's the best interior – Booker is the best interior lineman for this draft. He's plug and play. He'll start week 1, no question. You remember Zach Martin, the great guard who will go in the Hall of Fame someday. He retired, so this makes sense. It makes sense. It's probably a little bit early for people, but you know what? He's going to start day 1. This one's interesting. The command of Love Connerly, the left tackle from Oregon, but they're going to play him at right tackle. It's not always easy. People think it's easy. It's just a different side. No, you got to relearn it. You've got to learn it's a different position, folks. It's tackle, but it's on the other side. You got to learn it. It's not easy. Yeah. But they've really improved their offensive line now with the Tunsil trade. Then the Giants, Mike. Okay, they got Carter, where everyone thought that was going to happen. But man. Trading up to grab a quarterback, Dart, who's a fascinating quarterback. He's not for everybody. There are people we talked to didn't like him. There are people we talked to like him. But they got their quarterback of the future. That's what the draft is about, the future. And they got it. For your Giants fan listening, at least you have a plan here for this front office.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening the rest of the NFC East tonight. And, of course, you can listen to the draft on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage begins at 7 o'clock. Tomorrow, the coverage begins at noon. Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. They have plenty of coverage and more to come. Check out all their platforms. And, of course, Monday, right back here, we'll recap it all with Jeff Mosher for Football at 4 on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you.
All right, there's a Football at 4 Friday edition here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. So, he gave you a little insight on what other teams thought of Campbell, why he fell. Now, the injury is one of the reasons why he fell, but he also talked about teams were kind of mixed on what to do with him. Do they want him as an edge rusher? Do they want him as an off-ball linebacker? Is he a guy that had the ability to play linebacker there? So many people thought this was the best linebacker, but what is a linebacker in today's game? That's another interesting stuff. We'll have Knicks Nuggets coming up on the way on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. We are live today at Boardwalk Honda. You know that I'm realizing today, Nuggets?
What are you realizing today, Mike Gill?
I feel that my target demo has changed.
I might have.
There's been a lot of older women that have been out here today, right?
We're big fans of you, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is amazing, the amount of people that have come out to check out the trophy. But I'm pretty surprised at
it's your voice.
The breakdown.
Yeah, the breakdown of of everyone coming out. It's skewed a little older, and the big fans of you.
Well, you got some really, really young, young kids.
The age gap's wide. Yeah. It's wide. So, but yeah, you had some fans stop by. They were big fans of you. They said hello. They took a picture with the trophy. It's been a great time out here at Boardwalk Honda. It's been busy. I mean, you're seeing cars pulling up, getting out real quick, then getting back. It's like people are leaving work real quick to go back on their lunch break.
Right. So if you're on Tilton Road in EHT heading towards Margate, you can stop on in, pull in, and quickly snap a picture and keep on going where you're going. If you're coming from Margate and you're heading out to EHT, Mays Landing, or out that direction, you pull on in, take a quick picture, keep on going. Quick little stop. If you drive by us on Tilton Road in EHT, we're at the Boardwalk Honda, right there where Fire Road and Tilton Road meet. Maybe honk the horn. Let us know that you're out there listening today and spring into the savings throughout the month of April right here at Boardwalk Honda. They have the largest in-stock inventory in the region. Over 200 Honda cars, SUVs, trucks ready for immediate delivery. And we've had a great time out here. The people inside have been outstanding. They've been coming out. As the people come out here to take their picture, everybody got a couple Giant fans inside.
There was a couple of Giant fans.
Well, I told them, hey, man, you should feel as much about this Super Bowl as the Eagles fans. Thank you for Saquon, and we'll take Carter in a couple of years, too.
They're as much a part of this as anything. And I was talking to the one Giant fan. I was like, listen, Carter's got the picture with the trophy, too, so you're just like one of your players. A picture with the Eagles Philadelphia trophy.
We got plenty more coming up, including Knicks Nuggets today, and we'll get into the draft. I got some thoughts on round 2 and 3 of the draft, a couple targets as well, plus all day tomorrow draft coverage on 97.3 ESPN. Stop out and see us on your way home for Happy Hour Friday. Maybe you're stopping out to pick up a little Happy Hour Friday Shasta or something, a little pop for the weekend. Let us know what you're getting into this weekend, where you're watching the draft. Phil's, by the way, first pitch supposedly in about 10 minutes from now. But stick around. When we come back, it's Knicks Nuggets next on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, 428 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We're live out on the scene today at Boardwalk Honda. Come out and have your picture taken with the Birds Championship Trophy. We're out here for another hour and a half, so you got time on your Friday if you're driving around Chilton Road, Fire Road, EHT. Boardwalk Honda. Visit us right here and check us out. We're here till 6 o'clock tonight. Time for the Nuggets today. Nick's Nuggets are brought to you by The Hub. Gear that works as hard as you do. All right, Nuggets today. We got a lot of Nuggets on the plate, including Phil's, by the way. The Phil's in a rain delay. They are just about to start, though.
Yeah, 4:30 will be the start time, Eastern time on our side of things. They're in Chicago at Wrigley Field today. So they're going to get rolling. They start in that rain delay, so they're going to get started in just a few minutes. But, that's where we'll start, Mike Gill, with the Phillies. And Nugget number one, we talk a lot of football today. I'll get back into the football in just a second, but we got to talk a little bit of Phillies. According to Corey Seidman of NBC Sports Philadelphia, Brandon Marsh is going to play 7 innings in center field in AAA with the Lehigh Valley Iron Pigs today. He began last night, etc. He's going to be playing 7 innings in center field. Also, Ranger Suarez will start Sunday at AAA. 80 pitches will be expected. He could make one more start at AAA after that, but that is to be determined according to Rob Thompson. They want to stretch him out to 90 to 95 pitches, Mike Gill. But I also want to add into this, Nugget. I don't know if you saw this, because it has to do with Marsh and Ranger Suarez. Ranger Suarez bought an entire food truck for the entire Iron Pigs team.
Wow.
And Marsh, Stubby, they were all posting selfies, etc. And there was a little chalkboard that said "paid for by Ranger Suarez." So he's helping out the minor league crew as he's going through his rehab assignment.
Well, that's what you do. If you remember when Michael Jordan played baseball, apparently
I wasn't alive, but
apparently,
I remember.
People listening will remember when Michael Jordan once played baseball. Apparently, he got a really high quality. Upscale bus or something for them to ride on and did stuff like that. But, that's what the major leaguers do when they go down there, especially when you're making a couple of, sometimes you're only down there for one quick rehab start and then you're back. Now this is Ranger has had 2 in Clearwater, 1 in Lehigh. Where's this next one? Lehigh
AAA,
again?
yep.
Okay, so he's been in Lehigh. Normally they'll just pitch whoever's the home team, so you don't have to travel on the road somewhere and go pitch. So I guess Lehigh Valley might be at home. It'll be interesting because you thought with the whole thing with Sanchez that if Sanchez has to miss a start, now they haven't announced anything about Sanchez, whether he's a miss a start. It doesn't sound that way.
No, it doesn't sound like he's going to miss any start. No update on that just yet. He's not heading to the IL or anything. Seems like he's going to be okay. But, you'll take Ranger Suarez back into this rotation. You got Taijuan Walker pitching today. Walker will probably move back to the bullpen. I mean, I don't know what you do with Taijuan Walker. I mean, the bullpen's been bad. Do you even try and utilize him in 6th inning, 7th inning scenarios just to see what you have from him? I don't even know what you do with him.
No, I mean, he falls into the role that he was in last year, that you just kind of use him in a game where your starter only gets to 5 or you're losing 9-1 or you're winning 9-1. I mean, there is a role for someone that has to fill to be that guy. It's just not a very prominent role. The problem is this team needs a more prominent pitcher. They don't need a guy to pitch when it's 9-1. They don't need a guy to pitch in the role that, hey, we're winning 9-1 or losing 9-1. They don't really need that guy. They need a guy to be able to pitch the scores 4-2.
Well,
that's the guy we need.
Well, there's been discussion regarding Ranger Suarez. Do you move him back to the bullpen at some point this season?
The indication they're giving is no.
No, I know they're saying no, but do you have to think about that at some point?
Yeah, of course. I mean, they could say all you want. Hey, we're not going to move him to the bullpen. But at some point, you have to look at your bullpen and say, we've got to fix it and prioritize it. We didn't prioritize it when we had the chance to make moves. Now it's harder to make moves, so we have to get creative. Inventions are made out of necessity sometimes. Hey, what if this happened? Or what if I created this? And then voila, you end up on Shark Tank and you end up getting yourself a nice deal from, Mark Cuban or Kevin O'Leary or something. Well, that's what the Phillies need to do. They need to come up with an invention idea right now because they're in the middle of the season. It's hard to do something in season. So what do? Well, maybe I move Ranger Suarez to that spot. Maybe I make Mick Abel, who's one of my top prospects, but he hasn't been what I really hoped. but he's got a really good arm, and maybe he can help me out. Seth Johnson's another guy. Look, Seth Johnson's a player they got in a trade. If you remember the Seth Johnson deal, he came over in the trade for Soto last year. So he pitched up here 1 or 2 games. He did not look good. I don't think the Phillies look at Seth Johnson as a long-term top of the rotation guy, maybe a 4 or 5 starter. But you start to say, listen, I can't worry about a 4 or 5 starter 2 or 3 years down the road. I might need this guy to pitch in my bullpen prominently right now. So they might have to start looking at guys in their system who have good arms and look at them differently than they once did.
Right, and you're going to have to go down to AAA at some point if it continues to spiral and go out of control. Utilizing McGable, Griff McGarry, he was pitching well to start the season. I believe he get hurt.
I think he's hurt.
I think he got hurt. He had like a hidden no-hitter just recently, so he started off strong. You're going to have to take some of those guys though and maybe get creative with them. At this point, you didn't bring back Hoffman. You didn't bring back Estevez. We know the problems they've had back there. And with Ranger Suarez, you might move him to the bullpen anyway in the postseason. I mean, is he your 4th guy? You can't take Nola out. And when you're in the playoffs, I think he would be a guy that you're going to use in those high-leverage situations so you have him in your back pocket if you don't trade him.
Well, yesterday Dave Gallagher suggested on our show that you might have to start thinking about trading a guy like Christopher Sanchez because you have an abundance of starters. You need help in multiple areas. You need to give up something to get something. Now, when he says the name Christopher Sanchez, you're kind of like, I don't want to do that. But who's getting you more in return than a guy like Christopher Sanchez? He's a young pitcher who now has a contract. They signed him to a deal last year that's a manageable contract for somebody else. Now, I don't think that that's something that they would explore. But the point I'm making is, yeah, you could say Ranger Suarez, they might use him to pitch in the bullpen. But we talked about this with Bob Wankel back in the 3 o'clock hour. What if Andrew Painter comes up here and pitches really well from July, August, September? So well that you now say, I want to pitch him in the playoffs. Who is the 2 guys that get bounced to the bullpen? Because right now, if you bring up Painter, you have Suarez, you have Nola, you've got Luzardo, you've got Wheeler, and you've got Sanchez. That's 6 guys.
Yeah.
You only need 4 starters in the playoffs.
You have an abundance, and you don't need to go past that 4 starter. So, and do you feel comfortable bringing guys out of the bullpen who are starters, right? Like, that's something they're going to have to handle, and I think at the deadline, they're going to have to make a move. Whether it's Sanchez, I don't know about that. I think Ranger's the guy, obviously, that they could move on from just because of the contract situation and where he's out right now, and you can get value for him. So that's going to be something to watch for sure. But he is going to make another AAA start, be around 80 pitches, might make one more after that, according to NBC Sports Philly and Rob Thompson. So we'll see as things progress there with the Titans and Ranger Suarez. All right, let's move along to nugget number 2. Now, I want to talk Sixers really quick, briefly, before I get to my final nugget today. There was an anonymous poll that was conducted by The Athletic of, I believe, over 150 players across the league. And they voted on who the worst coaches were. Nick Nurse was voted number 5, worst coach in the NBA. Is that a fair judgment of Nick Nurse? I think Nick Nurse.
By who?
By over 150 anonymous players. This was conducted by The Athletic. Nick Nurse, 5th worst coach, according to the players, Mike Gill. Is that fair to Nick, for Nick Nurse?
I don't know how the players could even vote on something like that. Like, how many players in the league have actually played for Nick Nurse?
That's what I mean. Like, how do they know? Like,
you figure, okay, everybody.
It's not his fault that this disaster of a season happened.
No, I just don't think it's a fair thing to ask. Like, what's the sample size
of how many players? Or
yeah, I mean, you figured he played in Toronto. Okay, he was there for how many years? 4 or 5 years as the head coach there. Okay, over the years, maybe 30 different players played for him. Now he's in Philly. So maybe he's had a total of 50, 60 players total that played for him that are currently in the league. Maybe some of those guys aren't even in the league anymore.
This was from 158 total NBA players representing every single team. So that is your sample size right there. He's 5th. Now, Doc Rivers, mind you, is 3rd on that list. I mean, that's kind of close. I'm not going to put Nick Nurse in the same category as Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers is much more frustrating than Nick Nurse. I don't think that Nick Nurse should be in the top 5 at all. I mean, I feel like a couple of years ago, if we did some research on the other polls, Nick Nurse would probably be more at the top of the list, or at least in the middle of the pack. Not top 5 worst in the league. I don't think that's a fair assumption.
What I think all this represents is what I've been saying for years, is that we put way too much stock in the coach and blaming him. You got people, fans, who think that Doc Rivers is the worst. These players are telling you he's one of the top 3 coaches in the game. Some people really like Nick Nurse and think he's smart.
third worst.
I understand that, but my point is fans really like Nick Nurse, and yet the players are saying he's one of the worst. So the players are saying Rivers is one of the best. The fans think that Rivers is one of the worst. The players are saying Nurse is one of the worst, and the fans at one point, probably not Sixer fans right now, but when they hired Nick Nurse, many people said, man, Nick Nurse is a great coach. He's a really smart guy. And when they hired him, people thought that was a good hire. So what it tells me is, as usual, fans put way too much stock in coaches and managers. The only sport to me where the coach could be criticized because they have a hand in every single play and every single moment of the game is in football. You could say, hey, the football coach, he calls every play. He calls every single play. Their game plan, they follow that game plan. In baseball and basketball, the coach isn't calling out a play every single play. The guys, the lineup is the lineup. It's written for them. They go out there and play. They either hit a ball, they don't hit a ball, all that stuff. Basketball, they either make a shot, they don't make a shot. What does Charles Barkley say? He said it's not even a competition anymore. It's become it's not even a competitive event anymore. It's become a three-point competition.
Yeah, I mean, that's essentially what it's been given. By the way, NFL, I mean, CEO, head coach, are they involved in every play? I don't know. That was an argument for a long time. I'll digress from there. But
that's part of
No, I'm joking. But, I understand what you're saying. You're involved as a coach in the NFL on every play. Basketball, a little bit different. I think for Nick Nurse, just in general, for this specific year and this specific poll, I think it's a little unfair to grade him towards the bottom because of everything that happened. We know what a disaster the Sixers were this year. I mean, Embiid, the knee was an absolute atrocity. Paul George gets hurt. Tyrese Maxey's hurt. The injuries. Daryl Morey going way older than he should have. Should have brought in more younger players. Jared McKinn gets hurt early on in the year. So I can't put all of that on Nick Nurse and then call him a top 5 worst coach. He's got an NBA championship, for goodness sake.
Well, Doc Rivers has an NBA championship, too, and people think that he's an idiot.
Yeah, but that Toronto run was a little bit better, I think. That more impressive than the Boston Celtics run with all those stars, KG, Paul Pierce. I mean, I think he had only Kawhi.
No, I thought Nurse, when he was in Toronto, did an excellent job.
He did.
And even after Kawhi left,
they were competitive.
He made them a competitive team. And listen, when Rivers was here, there was this whole weird thing about Rivers that when guys got hurt, that for whatever reason, Rivers did a better job when the team had less talent than he did when the team had more talent. That whole thing is like, man, why is Rivers and this team playing well when this guy's hurt, this guy's hurt? There was a weird stretch like that. But, I think we all put way too much on what the coaches on a night-to-night basis. Over an 82-game season, people just want to blame these guys and rip them and skewer them like they are the reason these teams lose. And, over an 82-game season, these guys are very, very minimal in the ultimate. Now, you want to say in a playoff game on that particular possession, you didn't like the play that they drew up, or they didn't call a timeout here, or, I think in a little bit of the rotations, why is this guy getting some more playing time than that guy? I don't like, those kind of things I think can be examined. But over an 82-game season, I think we put way too much on that. And that's why, this thing to me is funny, because I think most fans would say that they think Rivers is a terrible coach. I think most fans, at one point, I don't know about now because it's too close to Sixer fans because of what happened here, are questioning Nick Nurse. And then these players are the exact opposite. They're saying we don't like Nurse, but we do like Rivers.
Yeah, I think.
Where was this poll conducted?
The Athletic.
Okay.
So Rivers was the 3rd worst, and Nick Nurse was the 5th worst of all the coaches in the league. So, I mean, take that with what you want. I wouldn't put Nurse in the same category as Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers has fallen apart in the postseason. I can't tell you how many times. So,
yeah, but again, we put too much stock in that stuff.
Yeah, but we know the decisions
didn't fall
he made.
apart. His team.
How does that happen over and over, though? That happened over and over to Doc Rivers.
Except it didn't. He won a championship.
The Boston, I'm talking about the Clippers. With the Clippers through the 2010s, the Sixers. They fell apart in series again. It just happened over and over.
Yeah, and in most of those times, though, without looking back, the Clippers teams were not generally the better teams in those series. He had leads, and
but the Sixers, the Hawks, they had multiple times they could have won.
Absolutely. But my point is, you go back to that Hawks series, okay? I don't want to go revisit this, but I don't watch that game and say, oh, my God, Doc Rivers was horrible. I say Ben Simmons crapped himself.
Yeah, but we complained about the rotations, how many times, not playing the young play. I mean, there's so many. We could revisit that another day.
But my point is this. Yes, he had a lot of playoff failures. And I'm not the biggest Rivers guy in the world. He kind of rubbed me the wrong way. He was a little bristly at times. Kind of like, I didn't particularly think that he was the right fit for this team. That said, people say he couldn't win a championship. He already won a championship. He won a championship. So to say that he can't is ridiculous.
Never said he can't, but, I mean, the track record
he
after that wasn't
more
great.
For what he didn't do after the championship.
Right.
He gets judged more for that than he does for winning the championship.
I think
he won the championship first.
I know, but I think it's a fair criticism for what he's done since then. All right. We'll digress.
I don't know how people have this kind of mindset. Guy wins a championship. Then it's you stink, you can't win a championship.
He couldn't do it
His
anywhere
answer
else. He'd start players everywhere. He'd start players with the Sixers. He'd start players with the Clippers. And now he'd start players with the Bucks, and they can't do anything.
You think that Bucks team is really worthy of winning a championship?
I threw it. I had to throw it in there.
Let's be serious. And those Clippers teams, I thought were always very overrated. I was never a big fan of that Lob City bunch that he had out there. I didn't like those teams a lot. I thought they were a fun regular season team, not a championship quality team.
That's kind of how the Sixers are, too. So you maybe just get stuck with those type of players. All right, let's move along. Final nugget of the day. You're going to love this one.
But real quick,
yeah.
In the NBA, when you have the best players,
it's true. It's Players League.
He had the best players, and guess what?
He had a lot of really good players.
He won. When he had the best players, it doesn't matter what year it was. My point is, the team that wins in basketball generally is the team that has the best players.
Yeah,
you don't have some coach like in college that outsmarts and comes up with some creative thing. No, the best players win.
Sixers were the 1 seed. They got bounced by the Hawks. I mean, there's plenty of examples there. But I will digress.
And that Hawks team ultimately lost to a team that was better.
But here's the thing: he fell apart in the big moments. I would say Nick Nurse is a little bit better of a coach. I would take Nick Nurse over Doc Rivers. I like his rotations a little bit better, but it is what it is. All right, nugget number 3. All right, we got audio.
But the whole part of the discussion,
you're not letting me get to nugget number 3.
I will. The whole point of the discussion was exactly what I'm saying. The players disagree with the fans, and I'm saying the players are telling you that you're wrong. That's all.
All right. I think, well, no. Nurse was 5th, so Doc Rivers was higher on that list.
That's my point.
No, he's worse. Nurse was 5th worst.
Yes.
Then Doc Rivers was 3rd worst, so he's the 3rd worst coach. They're saying Nick Nurse is the 5th worst, so he's a little bit below Doc Rivers. That's the poll. You know what I mean? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So Nurse was like ahead of him. He's a better coach by 2 spots. But that's the same. That's the same. You know what I mean? So I don't know. All right. Nugget number 3. I'm finally there. Mike Gill let me get to nugget number 3. And we're going to talk about Roger Goodell. Another thing that you love is the tush push. And he was on Pat McAfee today, and he didn't have a lot of nice words to say about that specific play. Take a listen.
Commissioner, we had Matt LaFleur on earlier, and he said he thinks you may be in line with him when it comes to the tush push. Where are we with the tush push? How do we? How do we
had a little
moving
conversation in the gym at the end of the meeting. Yeah,
I assume. Where are we with the tush push? What do you in the next 3-4 months? Is anything going to happen?
Yeah, we're going to bring it back up. The competition committee, we've been talking about it, and I think the idea is to look back about our history, right? Since 1920 to 2005. You couldn't push or pull a player anywhere on the field. And is that a football play is the question. And a lot of coaches would tell you that's not part of football, right? It may be rugby, but it's not us.
So a lot to dissect there in a couple of minutes here, Mike Gill. He agrees with you and a lot of other coaches. He is not a fan of the tush push. He likens it to rugby, and it's not something that the NFL does and football does. What do you make of those comments from Goodell and maybe getting it pushed over the edge to get it banned?
Well, it's not surprising. He said it in that thing. There was for years you weren't allowed to push or pull a player. I don't know why they made the decision to change that. Why all of a sudden they said you can't push or pull a player. Hey, now let's let you push or pull a player. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but if you can do it and get away with it, then take full advantage of it. I've never advocated that I don't want them to keep the play. All I've been saying as an objective observer of the game, taking my Eagles fandom out of it, I would say the play to me seems like an advantage to the offense. It sounds like
with the trophy
Goodell.
right there, with the trophy right next to us. It's just.
Hey, listen, that play is a big part of why the trophy's here. And as I said, I'm not yearning for them to take the the play away. But I'm saying if you take the Eagles fan out of you and just be objective, and I say I'm a football fan. I'm not a fan of any team. To me, that play gives an unfair advantage to the offense. That's all. And I think Goodell said the same thing. He was saying a lot of people have suggested that the play is a rugby-style play. There's no pushing and pulling allowed. But if you could do it, how come other people? So he was trying to play both sides here, but you could hear that in my opinion, sounds more like he wants that play gone.
He wants that play gone. That's what I took from it. He wants it out, skedaddled, see ya, can't do it anymore. That's what I got from Roger Goodell. And he's playing to the fans, too, there in Green Bay. The fans behind are just, and we have people honking. This is great because they see us set up. But by the way, the Green Bay fans were going nuts behind him when he was talking about the tush push and why it shouldn't be there because they kind of
want it gone.
They want it gone too. And Matt LaFleur and the Packers are the one who are pushing for this.
Yeah,
listen. The fans have gotten in line.
I don't want them to get rid of the play. I'm just saying, if I'm Roger Goodell and it's my game and someone's bringing it up to me, I'm probably saying, why in the first place did we we never let teams push or pull a player. That was never part of our game.
They changed it. They're the ones who changed it. The Eagles have taken full advantage.
I understand that. So if I'm Roger Goodell and I'm asking these people who are saying, I want this play gone, pushing and pulling, it was never a part of the game. Why did we incorporate that into the game when it was never a part of the game?
Well, now, listen, the play is bigger than itself now. It's just T-shirts about it. We're talking about it all the time on the air. This play is just gigantic. I don't know how you can get rid of it now. You could change the defensive side of things, let them push a little bit. I don't know. Goodell's not in favor of it. You can tell from there. 3-pack of Nuggets.
That's the Nuggets today. They're brought to you by The Hub. Gear that works as hard as you do. We'll do it again tomorrow. Actually, no. We're off tomorrow.
Tomorrow's Saturday.
We'll do it again on Monday here on the Sports Bash. All right, next hour, we'll check out what's going on with the draft, the Eagles, and more. Plus, Rye or Cy. We got it all coming up for you. One more hour to go until the Happy Hour Friday begins. Where are you Happy Hour Friday this weekend for the draft? Also, Phil's, they start yet?
Yeah, they started. They started. Game's going.
Nothing. Phil's bottom of the first. Phil's offense, very quiet, just like Howie Roseman for much of the night last night. And then he hit the prey.
I'm going to give them 110%, everything I got in me. You know, the Richard just got rich. Best team in the nation. I mean, what can I say? E-A-G-L-E-S.
Ah, yes, that's Jihaad Campbell. First-round pick for the Philadelphia Eagles as they move up with their Super Bowl foe, the Kansas City Chiefs, last night from 32 to 31 to take the linebacker out of Alabama. South Jersey product as well, Nick Earnshaw. Mike Gill will be back in just a second. He need to step away, run to the bathroom real quick. We're going to mess with him just a little bit, but we're having a lot of fun. We're at Boardwalk Honda on Tilton Road, so come on out. Have a blast. We're set up right there as soon as you drive in and pull in. We're having a lot of fun out here today. Listen, the Eagles, they get a linebacker, first time in years since they've done that, since I believe the 1970s. I mean, they're just like the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers didn't take a wide receiver since 2002. They take one last night as the man, the myth, legend, Mike Gill steps back.
I'm getting my pictures with the Super Bowl trophy over here. Sorry, I was running a little late, getting a couple. Some people stop by.
Yeah, you're a popular guy.
Yeah, you know, the trophy's a little popular. I would say that. Oh, boy. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike and Nick, we're out here. And, of course, the Eagles draft tonight. We'll get into that. We got Rye or Cy this hour on the Sports Bash. We also got a whole heck of a lot of things with the Phils we're going to be keeping an eye on. I know you'll have your eye on the Phils. What's it, nothing?
Still nothing at this point.
So Walker's on the mound today?
Taiwan Walker is on the bump.
Okay. All right. And the lineup is kind of the normal lineup that they've kind of morphed into with Stott in the leadoff spot and everything else. So nothing crazy today with the Phils. Keep an eye on that. They got day game today, day game tomorrow, then a night game on Sunday. You can listen to that game here on 97.3 ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball, Phillies and Cubs on 97.3 ESPN. I do want to get into, real quick, the draft here last night. So Campbell is the pick at 31. The Eagles make a trade to go up and get him. One spot, they trade a fifth-round pick. I love the pick. I cannot sit here and pretend that I saw this coming. There's no part of me that I say, man, they're making a trade and that's who it was for. So let me paint the picture for you here. It's 11:27 when this happens. The Eagles make the trade. Now, my girlfriend is watching some show on Netflix. I don't even know what it is. Because I said, listen, I'm not going to bore you with having to watch the draft.
You threw the one headphone in, didn't you?
I put in right here. I put in a little ear plug in my ear.
Nice.
I was watching on YouTube TV on my laptop. So I watched the draft on my laptop. She was watching, I think the show's called like Bridgerton or something.
Do not ask me about TV shows. We have gone over this.
It's
Do
on
not
Netflix.
ask me about TV shows.
Yeah, it's a Netflix show, Bridgerton or something. Well, she's like 3 seasons in, so I'm not like trying to catch up or help out or anything. So I was like, you know what? You can keep watching that. I will watch the draft. I'm not going to subject you to watching the draft. All right? I'm not going to make you watch the draft. I'll watch it on my laptop. So the whole thing's going, and she's watching episode after episode after episode after episode after episode. I don't know that many, but like 4 or 5 episodes.
Couple
Because the
episodes,
draft,
yeah.
you figure the draft starts at 8. It's 3 hours long.
Well, Goodell also brought up a McAfee like we talked about in the Nuggets. He also brought up maybe shortening the draft a little bit, maybe like 7 minutes, maybe give an option for an extra 2 additional minutes. So that's at least they're thinking about it.
All right, we'll bring in the third member of this hour, Ryan Rothstein. We'll do like a 3-man Rye or Cy Day. This should be fun on a happy hour Friday. You got a nice cold one. So I'm telling him the scenario of my draft last night. I said, I didn't have Heidi. I didn't make her watch the draft. I put it on my laptop and put an earplug in and listen to it that way, okay?
Man, what a guy you are. What a guy.
I can't hear you.
I said, what a guy you are.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, so at 11:27, her episode ended.
Right.
And at that point, I said, all right, we can go into the bedroom. I said, we're at pick 30. This thing's over in 20 minutes. Soon as I say that, I see a tweet that says the Eagles have made a trade. And I was like, you've got to be kidding me right now. They make the trade, and I'm going through my mind, who are they trading one spot up to get, right? So I want to know, everybody listening right now, text in 609-403-0973. When they made that trade, who did you think they were trading up one spot to go get? Because I was like, who are they moving one spot that they think the Chiefs might take or someone would trade over the Chiefs to go get? I was perplexed at what they might be doing. And I have to be honest and admit, there was not 1% of me, not one, because I even tweeted this out. I don't know if Mike Green's on their board. He has a lot of off-the-field stuff. And quite frankly, he probably shouldn't be on their board. So I'm just saying, if he's on their board, it has to be for him, right? If not, maybe Ezeraku as an edge rusher. And then I said maybe a wild card, Mason Taylor, the tight end, right? There's been talk about tight end. Not 1% of me, guys, not 1% thought this was the player they were going to take. And when they took Campbell, I was ecstatic. Love this player, love the fit, love this whole thing, but never saw it coming.
I mean, I don't think there's a player that existed at that point where we're like, oh, boy, well, clearly they're jumping over Kansas City because of player X. Like, it didn't – this is like a Howie thing, though. Hasn't he done this a few times in recent years where he'll move up just a couple of spots? I know there was more significant of a move. I think it was for Devontae Smith. My memory's not serving me, but he's done this a few times where he trades up, but it's like 3 spots, 5 spots. They're not doing any significant movement. So it's strange. It is strange, but I had no idea. There wasn't a player on the board where you're like, oh, well, they're getting this guy, right? Like, it was weird.
I don't know. Was there a player on the board for people listening out there that when they made the trade to go up 1 spot that you said, that's who I want them to take? Now, listen, you might have said, like I said, if Mike Green was on their board, that's a player that you probably would have said, we had this guy as a top 10 player. He has some off-the-field issues, but if he's all the way down here now, we're going to take him. So that was my one thought. Then Ezeraku as an edge rusher who had first round, people had him mocked in the first round. So if you said, hey, that's the guy that we want to make sure we get, fine. Those were the 2 names, but never in a million years. Now, Emawari, the safety out of South Carolina, he was another one that did they want to go? And I was like, they're not going to trade up for a safety, though. Like, I just could not see that happening.
And let's not forget, guys, if the player's not from Georgia or Alabama, they're probably not drafting him, right? So we can do process of elimination. It's another Alabama guy. It's either Georgia or Alabama. Obviously, Quinyon last year. But my goodness, the track record now of Howie just continuing to go to that well of Bulldog or Roll Tide. And I love that, man. I love that.
Well,
love it.
And what's funny is there was a time that they got criticized for not going SEC. They were kept going. And then last year they took a player from the MAC, right? I mean, Quinyon Mitchell was a player that went to Toledo. So, look, I think when Howie has evolved, he's done his homework. And I thought last night he played it perfectly. And when he made the pick, when they said Jihaad Campbell, I was like, you've got to be kidding me that they took this player. I loved it.
Well, Caplan even mentioned on Football 4, he thought maybe they were going corner because maybe there could have been a run on corners. Even Mosher tweeted it out last night, too. They could have went that route as well. I mean, there wasn't really a slam dunk guy that you thought they're going to trade up and get this guy. So I was a little shocked. I was like, whoa, they actually did go with Campbell. So he's a local product. It's pretty cool that they did take him, too.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love it. Absolutely love the pick. It is strange. I mean, I guess it just had an abundance of picks where you're like, screw it. We'll give Kansas City 164 or whatever it is. But it felt like all signs for Kansas City was they were getting an offensive lineman. Like, that was well known. But whatever. Who cares, right? The Eagles
wasn't what Kansas – it wasn't what Kansas City wanted. As Roseman said, we thought someone might trade over top of us to go and get this player because we had a top 10 grade on them. So they didn't want, Cleveland to go from 33 to 31 to go take this player. That was basically the gist of what they were trying to, portray last night. But I'm going all over the place thinking, okay, they just traded up. As that trade kind of gets announced here, I'm thinking, all right, which player are they trying to get to move one player for that they didn't want somebody else? And that's when my mind just started to go like, man, where are they going here? So you look at round 2, and it's like, is it offensive lineman? Is it a wide receiver? Is it, wide receiver I didn't think they were going to take there. Is it a corner, is what I should,
Right.
Safety and corner. Will Johnson, the corner from Michigan, would be the one. Mike Green, I was like, okay, if he's on their draft board, he's probably a guy that would be worth trading for. And if there was an edge rusher that just, that they liked more than other people, that was the whole thing for me. But ultimately, I thought they did a great job last night in being patient, letting it fall, and then bang, making the move right when they had to. And this is a byproduct of having the extra pick, right? They had 4 picks in the 5th round. So Howie's saying, you know what? We have an abundance of picks. And this is what we talked about yesterday. They have so many picks that they know they can't draft 20 guys over the next 2 years. So if I want to move up one spot to make sure I get the guy I want, I have an abundance of picks. Here you go. You can take my 5th.
Howie needs to thank Howie. Howie acquires all that draft capital, and it affords himself the opportunity to do something like that. And let's not forget this aspect of it as well. The Vic Fangio dynamic, and I know this has been talked about throughout the media, and there's been articles written about Vic Fangio's presence, right? Like, give Howie Roseman so much credit for not just doing what he's been doing, right? He's a stud, but how he's evolved and how he looks and assesses at talent on defense, particularly the linebacker position, right? Like, he said it himself, Howie, that Vic Fangio has taught him and educated him on what guys they need to look for and how he can just look for the right guy who's just a football player, right? No, he's not replacing Nakobe Dean. This is a guy that can line up anywhere in the front 7, and this is a guy that Vic Fangio signed off on as, hey, I got you. I can coach this guy.
That's an interesting point, and it hasn't been brought up much today, is how much pull has Vic Fangio now been given that he can say, I want you to make a trade to go get a linebacker.
Howie said that.
Who would have hell freezing over, pitch flying? The Eagles have paid linebacker big money and now drafted one in the 1st round. The last time was Jerry Robinson in 1979.
It's my point, fellas. It's unbelievable. And Howie said exactly that. He said, I give Vic a ton of credit, and he has a huge role in this because he's sort of educated me on this is a guy that's not just going to replace Nakobe Dean or be an inside linebacker. He can line up basically anywhere. He's going to do a lot of different things for us. And this has been the narrative, to your point, MG, has been Howie's not a linebacker guy. The Eagles aren't a team that values the linebacker position. This has been the offseason for the linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, it all started last offseason, by the way, when they signed and paid for a running back, something that we never, they're not paying for a running back. They've gone the cheap route. They went with the trade for DeAndre Swift. Hey, somebody else had him. You don't want him. We'll take him for a 4th-round pick. So they've kind of gone the cheap route at running back until they finally did it. So they have really changed their mindset. And by the way, them changing their mindset, you saw last night, if memory serves, 2 running backs went in the 1st round last night?
Yeah.
Or 3. Was it 2 or 3?
I know it was.
I think it was 2.
Hampton was 22.
Because the Chargers took one, and Ashton Genty also.
So you had 2 running backs taken in the 1st round. Not something that you would generally see in the last couple of years. So because the Eagles shifted the way, and then, by the way, you saw running backs get paid. You saw people signing running backs. So the Eagles have now shifted the way other teams are starting to look.
They set the tone, and it's like, let's also factor in that the Eagles, they're prioritizing those positions now, but they also put themselves in a position to where they built the roster on both sides of the ball to where it's like, okay, now let's go figure out linebacker. Now let's go figure, like they added Saquon when the other 10 positions on the field, guys, were lock, key, and set studs, right? Let's go add Saquon, the missing piece. Let's go add Zach Bond and now Campbell. So it's home run all around.
Well, and this is what really, I think, sets the Eagles apart from what now I got to give some credit a little bit here for a couple things. One, right, the Eagles, what they have done well in this run from 17 to now, the last 8 seasons, is, number one, they draft boring sometimes. They are patient enough to draft an offensive lineman when the fans want the running back or the wide receiver. And they are willing to just kind of slow play it. And they build that way. Where other teams generally will say, we're going to draft a quarterback first, but we have no offensive line. And now that quarterback
i.e. Jacksonville. My goodness.
Well, so you don't like what Jacksonville did last night?
I mean, Jacksonville, I think I'm starting at tight end next year. Nick Nuggets is starting at running back. I mean, that team's an absolute definition of dumpster. And they mortgaged their future to go get a guy who was a stud. He's a stud. He's the popular pick. It's not really a pick that you can, quote, get wrong, but does it make sense? They probably could have used a boring pick.
Well, and it's like the Giants, for instance. They drafted Saquon with no offensive line. And then you're trying to then put the line together after you've got the player. Well, now you've tried to keep putting the line together as the player keeps playing. Now you failed one time. You picked the wrong guy, and it's like, all right, well, we drafted, Will Hernandez, and he didn't work out. And we drafted this guy, and he didn't work out. Well, now you have 2 seasons worth of Saquon Barkley with no offensive line. Instead of drafting the lineman first, and then again, and then again. So
that's why they've been in the basement for this long, right? I mean, they had the running back, and they didn't have a quarterback either. They made the wrong decision on the quarterback, too. So, I mean, and who knows? Did they make the wrong decision again on the quarterback? That's going to be questioned. They didn't take Shador.
But what I will say, guys, is this. I thought Dallas last night went with a guard, and people are laughing at them, but they know someone has to block Jalen Carter. Someone has to block him. And if we don't draft a guy, we could get anybody we want at wide receiver, and that guy's going to be in our face every single time we play. And then Washington could have said, hey, we made the NFC Championship game last year. Let's go get another wide receiver, or they'll go get – no, they went and got a tackle and said, we're going to play it boring and get a tackle. So I liked what all 3 NFC East teams, other than – and Philadelphia, but I like what all 3 teams' mindset. I think they all had, even Dallas, who took a guard. I don't think it's a great value position at number 12 to take a guard, but they had to get a guard. Someone has to block Jalen Carter.
Well, I forget the wide receiver. His name's eluding me. Allegedly, they would have gotten him, but he went right off the board right before the Cowboys selected. Whatever. They ended up not being able to get the guy they wanted at receiver. For me, I laugh when you bring up the Cowboys, guys, because, once again, Micah Parsons is such a clown, dude. He's such a clown. Like, the story now is him on his podcast, and Big Play Slay is sitting next to him on the couch, massaging his shoulders. He's like, reacting to the pick, saying he doesn't like it. It's like, that's the problem with the Cowboys. Like, what are you doing if you're Micah Parsons, dude? It's unbelievable. You would never see an Eagle doing that. I don't know if you saw that.
He's doing a live stream, and he's
negatively
like, I like the pick, but yeah,
brutal, just brutal. What are
Cowboy
you doing?
behavior.
I mean, he thinks he's got a career. He thinks he's got a career afterwards. I always see him tweeting about how great podcasting is, etc. Well, Micah, why don't you just go be a podcaster?
Well, you got Micah Parsons sitting there. I don't even know who he's with, right?
He's with
but
Slay.
He's almost
Slay was sitting next to him. Darius Slay was with him last night. Yeah.
I saw the video of Micah Parsons just like. He's like, no, I like the player, but I was just kind of hoping we got a guy on the defensive side of the ball.
Darius Slay was next to him, like, patting him on the back, like, it's okay, man, it's okay. And it's like, as soon as Slay leaves, he's over sitting next to Parsons in his lap. It's like, dude, yeah, Parsons, your podcast is successful because everyone's laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
Hey, listen. Keep that energy there, man. Allow that to keep happening.
Yeah.
And listen, I think Dallas last night, though, made a smart, boring pick. I'm probably at number 12. It's like when you're at number 12, when you're so bad that you get into the top 15, you want to get an impactful type of player. But I do think that was something that they needed in the end.
It is what they needed. You bring up the excellent point of, listen, the Eagles are in your division. You need to get better at pass protection. You need to get better at run blocking, right? Like, all those things are the difference in being a great team and a good team in the NFL. So those picks are needed.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and listen, I thought that, again, just to kind of recap, the fact that the Philadelphia Eagles made the pick of Campbell, my reaction was shocked. I was pretty shocked that they actually did that. And it was definitely not what I thought they were doing when they made that trade.
I mean, you see, he was on a lot of guys' top 10 board, top 15. Did you see the one player comp that Campbell had? It was Zach Bond. There was a full
Yeah.
analysis the Athletic did. Yeah, I was like, it's so perfect. So perfect.
Yeah, we were looking at, and by the way, one of the other areas that people are kind of insinuating that he will be used like is similar to Micah Parsons, where he was an off-ball linebacker in college. Then they needed him out of necessity, right? They needed him out of necessity. Dallas did because of all the injuries they had his rookie year. So they made him an edge guy, and he was just super dominant in that role. So they just kept him there.
Yeah, it's this is a guy that flies around the ball. He was all over for Alabama. Not a whole lot of negatives. They said any negatives that you can spot, his athleticism made up for it. Like anytime he made a mistake, he was able to refocus and reshift and still get in on a play. So it's a home run, man. Another Howie home run.
Well, it seems like a lot of people. There's a couple of people that are texted in and said they thought that Luther Burden was going to be the pick when the Eagles traded up there. There's a couple of people who texted that in. I didn't think that at all. There was no part of me that thought they were taking a wide receiver in that spot. No. I definitely felt that. Look, you lost on the defensive side of the ball this year. Milton, Josh, Darius Slay,
Brandon
Isaiah
Graham.
Rogers, Brandon Graham retired. Yep. You traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That's 7 guys right there, plus Oren Burks. That's 8 guys right there.
And Nakobe Dean's going to be hurt to start the year.
We
so
think,
you needed – you needed to get a linebacker at some point.
Yep. The thought process here of needing to replace like 7 different players made me think, unless there was a offensive guard or lineman, that would have been the other one. I could not see a spot, though, where they were going to take a skill position offensive player at 31. But who knows where Luther Burden was on their board. I don't think he was going to be I don't think they had him as a top 10 player, put it that way.
Right, exactly. Like Earnshaw brings up the point of, Nakobe Dean being hurt, and that's a huge possible factor in all of this. But forget all the points you guys made. It's like this is also a top 10 guy on a lot of people's boards. So you have the luxury of getting another steal in the draft if you're the Eagles and Howie Roseman. Perfect.
All right, Phils are trailing 1-0. Update down in Chicago. They're back and going, and John birdie with an RBI double for the Cubs. They lead 1-0 over the Phillies. We'll keep you up to date for the rest of the show. We got our Friday picks coming up here on the Sports Bash. A couple bold predictions. We'll throw them your way. Stick around. More Sports Bash coming up live. We're almost done here at Boardwalk Honda, but we've been having a blast out here today. By the way, you could stop out, get your picture taken with the Eagles Championship Lombardi Trophy. It is here. It is there for you to take a picture with. Many of you stopped out, said hello. It's been great to see a lot of people saying hello. Also, people have been dropping their name in the box here. We have a pair of tickets to see Post Malone with Jelly Roll. That is at Citizens Bank Park on Saturday, May 24th. Post Malone with Jelly Roll. Stop out, enter to win those tickets. You have till the end of the show to enter, and we'll pick out the winning name, and you'll be qualified, or it should be, you'll be contacted if you are the winner. More Sports Bash coming up. 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Hi, welcome back. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. You got about a half hour if you're in the driving area right now. Stop out, pull right up, get your picture taken with the Eagles Super Bowl winning trophy right here at Boardwalk Honda, Chilton Road, EHT. One more segment left on a Friday. We're going to hit a bunch of different topics now. Rye or Shy, 5 p.m. hour on a happy hour Friday. Let's get weird. What do we got?
Let's get weird, man. Am I locked in here? I'm not in the stream. You got me?
There you go. Yep, you're in there. I see it.
Oh, I just see the Sports Bash with Gil. All right, I'm a little slow over here. Here we go. So Phils are live finally. No permanent delay. They're off and running. But I want to get into this topic. I saw an interesting stat on social, and this will be good for us three to sort of discuss and debate. So,
all right, let's hear it.
Obviously, the Phillies and leadoff have been a popular topic of discussion. And Schwarber's batted in 25 games. He's batted leadoff. He's batted third. He's batted fourth. The Phillies, when Schwarber bats leadoff, their record, boys and listeners, 6-3 when Kyle Schwarber's hitting leadoff. When Kyle Schwarber is not batting leadoff, the Phillies are 7-10. Schwarber has not batted leadoff since April 10th. Since April 10th, the Phillies are 4-10. So, is that one of the main issues? Does this team go as Schwarber goes in the leadoff spot? I've always been a huge fan of Schwarber in the leadoff, and it seems like there might be something there. Maybe there's not. But what say you guys?
I would rather Schwarber hit in the leadoff spot, too. One problem they have is they have no one to hit behind Harper. So it's the constant piece of pulling this piece to fill that hole, and then that hole starts leaking. So now you've got this hole, and now, by the way, he has struggled since he's hit behind Harper in the 4-hole. He has not been – he got off to a great start, and now he's not off to going very well. But this is a byproduct of them being one man short. They constantly are robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then, hey, somebody else is saying, well, where's my money? And there lies one of the problems with this team. They're one bat short. Or I would say more than one bat short, but they're one middle-of-the-order bat short.
Right. Ryan, I'll tell you what. You are speaking my language. I love Schwarber in the leadoff hole. I hear Mike's point. You have no one to protect Harper. That's the whole problem right now. But when Schwarber leads off, this team wins games. It's it. It's plain and simple. When he is in the leadoff spot, their pace, when he's leading off, it's unbelievable. They're on a 90-win-plus win pace when he leads off, and when he could start you off with a walk. He'll work the pitcher to start the game. He could start you off with a home run with a bang. There's so many great things to having him lead off. It just stinks they don't have that middle of the bat order to protect Harper. So I don't know what you do with him.
I'm with you. We're on the same page, Nick. So I pushed back on Gil's point of the bat behind Harper, and that's a fact. That's not an opinion, right? Like, we all can agree that's an issue. That's a whole this team has been a World Series contender when Schwarber's been in the leadoff.
Yep.
You move them out of the leadoff, they're below 500, right? So we're talking about they're a bat short. That's why they're doing this. They're not a playoff team if they continue to do this, right? So, like, I don't understand. Like, this issue is not going away either way. So we might as well go back to being a World Series contender with Schwarber setting the tone at the top of the order rather than being under 500.
Well, there's a couple things that are worth bouncing around there. One, they have another option to hit leadoff in Trey Turner, who, by the way, hit leadoff for a team that won the World Series. The problem is their lineup construction, their roster construction, makes them so left-handed that they can't really hit Trey Turner leadoff right now, because if they do, they don't have a number 2 hole hitter, because the guy who would fit in the number 2 spot is also left-handed in Bryson Stott. So now they're hitting Bryson Stott in the leadoff spot, and you're having Trey Turner, who, by the way, is not living up to the contract that he signed. So, yes, he has hit leadoff for a team that won the World Series, but he is not the same player that was the leadoff man on the team that won the World Series.
You can't hit Trey Turner anywhere. Forget leadoff. You can't hit him anywhere.
No.
I mean,
we listen, I brought this up Monday, and to me, the biggest problem with this team, it's not their bullpen's a major problem. But you reap what you sow in the bullpen. You pay for what you get in the bullpen. You paid Turner and Castellanos and Real Muto, and to some extent you've got, Schwarber and Harper not doing what you're paying them to do right now. I mean, they got off to good starts. Schwarber did. Harper's been okay. He's not great. But the guys who make all the money on this team, Aaron Nola, another one, they're not performing to their contracts. So you got a lot of problems with underperforming what your expectations are.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Because we can start, pointing the microscope on top of Dombrowski's head, and we're already starting to do that, and that's valid. I'm not saying we shouldn't, but this guy built a World Series contending team. Like, this team has been awesome that he's built. So it's like now all of a sudden we're going to criticize him because those guys are underperforming. It's like we can't have our cake and eat it too. Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
But Ryan, I think he deserves a lot of criticism, and I think it also bleeds into Bryce Harper, too. It's the roster construction. Him moving to first base opened these holes in center field and left field. Now, that's not to say that that Turner has not performed. Some of these guys are not performing. That's part of it. So you knew there were holes heading into last offseason after that Mets series. He did not address them. He added another left-handed bat in Max Kepler, did not bring back Hoffman. I mean, they didn't do anything. This is the same exact team you brought back. The major move you made was adding to your rotation, which is great. The rotation's in a great spot. But offensively, the roster construction just is not there, and the outfield is a major problem. You're getting some decent at-bats from Johan Rojas at the moment, but overall, it's hurt your lineup.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to be the guy that's defending Dombrowski because I agree with you. But I did read the other day that, Dombrowski was asked about Hoffman, and he's like, listen, we made him an offer. The market valued him above board. Like, he just got a crazy $33 million deal, I think it was. Like, Dombrowski said, we wanted him back. We made him a solid offer. He got a crazy better one, right? So it's, if you're Dombrowski, what can you do? You want him to overpay that guy now, too? It's like, I don't know, man. It's tough. I will say if we want to be critical, we can be critical of the bullpen, right? Hoffman aside, like the bullpen is not deep enough. That's an issue. It's an absolute issue.
Well, listen, it is an issue, and he gets blamed for not addressing the bullpen. There's no question about it. But you pay for what you get what you pay for. They don't have a guy in that bullpen that you're like, this is our guy. There's nobody making any substance. Now you would say that's bullpens all over the place. Okay, then there's another problem. They haven't developed any of their own bullpen arms. The only guy in that bullpen who's a homegrown arm is Kerkering. That's it. There's no other guy. Strahm they signed from someplace else. Ruiz, he's a cast-off. Carlos Hernandez, he's a cast-off. So everything out there, they're all cast-offs, vagabonds, guys who you did not draft and develop yourself. By the way, Phils are down 2-0 now to the Cubs.
So, Earnshaw, you might know this name. I read earlier, and I'm forgetting his name. The Phillies moved him up to AAA. He's a reliever in hopes to get him ready to possibly bring him up to the Phillies at some point this year. They just did that today or yesterday. I forget the kid's name.
Yeah, it was Johnson. We were talking about him earlier.
Johnson, there we go. Yeah, I don't know what – he's not going to be, Mariano Rivero, but I don't know what that could possibly impact or mean. But
Well, I think they're now trying to get creative and think outside the box. Now, remember, Seth Johnson pitched with the Phillies last year. They called him up, and he was terrible in the game that he pitched in. But he was part of that Soto trade, and that was supposedly at the time, well, they got a really good arm back in return for Soto. And, we'll see. I hope, look, I said they got to look at guys like that, starting pitchers who have good arms, who just there's no room for you right now in this rotation. So we're going to shift our focus. We once viewed you as a starter. Now we're going to view you as a relief pitcher because we have Wheeler, Nola, Sanchez, Suarez, Painter, and we don't need you as a starter in this organization. So now we need to focus. You need to now focus on becoming a relief pitcher.
So to put a bow on where we started this, should they move Schwarber back to leadoff? I say yes, absolutely. Whether it's not immediately sometime soon. What do you guys think?
Listen,
I'd love to see it, Ryan. I would love to see him back in the leadoff spot, but you need someone else to step up so they can hit behind Harper, like a Bohm, somebody. I don't know. You can't trust Castellanos behind him. It's
he
tough.
said it.
What?
Can't trust Castellanos.
I've said that before. I've said that on the Nuggets.
I don't know about
Is he a
that.
Cassie defender?
Yeah. Oh, man. You got the Cassie defenders come after me all the time.
I'm no Cassie defender. I like Castellanos.
You like his IQ at the plate, I heard.
I can't have him behind Harper. We know that. We know that. Ryan, going back to your original point, Schwarber in the leadoff spot, it just makes the most sense for this team. They win games.
Listen, I've said before, too, like, I love the move for Casty. He's been fine. You hit him in the 4-hole, he generally does not come through in that spot. He's fine hitting 5, 6, 7, and there you get a pretty productive player. The problem is they signed him to be a middle-of-the-order guy, and because he hasn't done his job, they had to move him down. And because they had to move him down, now they had to find someone else. They used Bohm. Bohm was doing a good job in that role. Well, Bohm's been terrible this year. So it's because Bohm's been so bad, they had to move him down. You're out of guys. So now they're just, again, you're moving him to here, and because you moved him from here, you got to put someone else there. They're constantly a bat short. It all goes back to Castellanos has not been able to hit behind Harper as a right-handed bat that can hit 25 to 30 homers. That's what he was here for, and he has not fulfilled that role. And because he hasn't fulfilled that role, they've constantly had to move the chairs around the deck, and it hasn't worked.
Fun stuff. All right, we'll shift away from that fun discussion, and we'll try and squeeze in a couple more while we still have some time. So 76ers, right? I want to work into Sixers point. Got to force this in here, fellas. The Athletic did an anonymous players poll. I'm sure you saw some of the headlines from it. But 76ers were involved, right? So I'm going to give you some headlines here from that poll. 76ers were voted in the top 5 worst organizations in the NBA. Nick Nurse was voted in the upper half of the most overrated head coaches in the NBA. And Joel Embiid was voted as one of the most overrated NBA players in the NBA. So the 76ers were all over that poll, but for no good reason. Do you take anything away from that, or is that nothing?
I take a little bit away from it. I mean, the sample size is pretty small, 100-plus players. I mean, are they voting on this season? Are they voting the last 10 years?
Right now. Right? I believe it was right now, right, Rothstein?
Yeah. I mean, to be fair to Gil's question, there wasn't any specific parameters on it, but it was under the assumption of now. Yes.
Yeah, listen, this organization right now, it should be the whipping boy. They should be getting pelted, spit on, kicked at, laughed at, everything. They were an embarrassment this year from start to finish. They had not one positive moment for their fans the entire season. Not one. There wasn't one thing that they did all year that was, hey man, good job. You really nothing. They did nothing. So yes, right now
they tanked. I mean, they tanked. That was the one good thing. They tanked correctly, so they got a decent shot at the top pick.
And we don't even know if they got that yet. This season, right. If you're voting for this season, all of the stuff that is said is 100% accurate. I think the Embiid stuff is fair. In terms of overrated, he's never on the floor. I mean, so you can't sit here and say, man, this guy's one of the best players in the game.
Yeah.
But he's never out there. So you can't be one of the best players in the game when you're not out there. I mean, the same with Kawhi Leonard. I love Kawhi Leonard. He's never out there. So he's not one of the best players in the game when he's never out there. When he plays, you can see the difference in what the impact is. It's a shame for Embiid, but that's the truth. The Nurse stuff and that kind of stuff to me, Nurse wins a championship. People thought he was a great coach. Now all of a sudden he's the worst coach. It goes back to the coach is just a scapegoat for you're not good enough.
Yeah, the one thing that I would look into, not Nurse, not even Embiid, but being voted as a top 5 worst organization, that's a little alarming to me because you can have a one-off crazy bad luck year like the Sixers did and still not be viewed as that poorly. And that's how they are viewed. That's the perception around the entire league right now. They're a bottom 5 organization. That's bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, listen, hey, everybody is fair to pile on them. I don't think that's unfair at all. This season was hideous.
All right, I'll work into NFL draft national topics / headlines. what was the takeaway from round one on a national level?
That's obviously the trade.
Okay.
I mean, you get a trade where Jacksonville makes a huge move. They went and took best player available, energized a fan base that probably not big to begin with, but lost interest in that team completely. And they added, a player on both sides of the ball. Very intriguing to see what they end up doing him. What I thought the story was, though, that Cleveland makes a trade. And at first you're like, man, Cleveland got a haul. I didn't like the pick that they made with the 5th pick in the draft. So I thought that was really interesting. And then obviously the Giants trade back in and end up taking Jackson Dart over Sanders. Sanders doesn't get picked at all. That turns into a huge story because of the position they play and Sanders, all the hype, and not being picked in the first round.
Yeah. You just wonder, at least I wondered, if the hype was even real. Like the Sanders hype, right? Like the fact that he doesn't go at all in round one. It's like, were they just overblowing this guy because of who he is, who he was, right? And it's like at the end of the day, he actually wasn't really assessed and valued as high as maybe the talk around him was.
Here's a hypothetical Illuminati, if you will.
Love it.
The teams that were talking to Travis Hunter, did they bring him in and say, hey, would you want Sanders to be your quarterback in the NFL? And he'd be like, dude, my man's got no arm. I don't know. Like, did they ask him?
That's brutal.
That would
think
be
about
brutal.
the teams. Think about the teams that probably interviewed him, the Giants, the Browns,
Steelers,
teams that needed a quarterback. You bring him in and try to ask whether or not he's a guy that you think would be a quarterback that, hey, you're going to the pros now. Would you want him to be your quarterback? I'm not saying that happened. I'm just thinking outside the box of, like, some Illuminati stuff of, like, did that? Because we heard a lot of things about him leading up to the draft, and I think that's, listen, this is the problem. You gain notoriety because of who your dad is. It also could have hurt you. So,
Can I throw this out there about Sanders? I mean, hypothetically, could Dallas sneak in and maybe take him? I'm just saying, at some point. They've done weirder things. I mean, that could be an option. I was talking about this with someone earlier. Could they be an option to maybe make this thing a splash and bring him in because he's fallen so far?
I just wonder how many teams want to have to deal with the potential of his dad being a part of the equation and he needs to play. And these teams might have said, you know what, I don't want to deal with that, and he's not good enough to have to deal with that.
Yeah, you can't evaluate him. Like, all the circus that comes with him aside, you don't know if he's any good.
All right, we got to get out of here on this Friday. I'm getting yelled at in my ear. See ya.
Bye.
All right, that's Ryer Side for the Friday. There you go. More Sports Bash coming up. Bet365 Play of the Day closes out the show next. All right, getting ready to get out of here on this Friday night. Time for the Bet365 play of the day. Josh, how did we do?
2-0 last night, Mike. The Grizz game went under, and the Knicks didn't just cover the 1.5. They blasted Detroit yesterday.
2-0. What's that make us?
156, 101, and 1.
156, 101, and 1.
That's solid.
Woo, baby. All right, here we go. We got the Lakers over in the Laker T-Wolf game. And kind of like the Lakers tonight in that game. The number I saw earlier was 3.5, somewhere in that range. I like the Lakers in the over tonight. I want the Timberwolves to win that series.
So do I.
I'm going Lakers. Got to go with the trends, man. Got to go with my trends.
I know. I would rather see Ant have a big game. Lakers lose. I'm just tired of the Lakers. I'm tired of the whole thing with Luka, LeBron. I'm tired of it, Mike. But you're probably right.
Well, we just had a late family show up here.
Yeah.
With the Saquon shirt on.
They were
Little
all
family of 5
all
there.
eagled up. All eagled up.
Yeah, so
What a great day.
It was fun.
Great 2 days.
Trophies had a lot of pictures the last couple of days. Thanks to everybody who made an effort to come out and say hello, take the picture with the trophy. We're going to be bouncing around South Jersey with this trophy all throughout the summertime. We got some other stops getting ready to plan for you guys. We got some other stops we're going to be doing this summer for some other things that we'll give you some insight on as well. Coming up, don't forget, over on our website, 973ESPN.com, you can watch all of the Coaches versus Cancer games. So if you're looking for a game to watch this weekend, Ocean City, Cherokee, that game is running late, by the way. Holy Spirit, they're playing right now. Watch them all on our website, 973ESPN.com.